What is going on, my friends? I don't hear anything. Hold on. Do you guys hear me? Hear me? Testing, testing. 1, 2. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear me. I think we can hear me. I think we can hear me. Anyways, let's try it out. So today we're going to be doing the forecast episode, which means, I said I wasn't going to, and we're not going to talk about domestic policy. So we're not going to talk so much about the economics other than really broad strokes. Like, for instance, obviously we all know that if China invades Taiwan, all bets are off. The economy is going to go haywire. Like, no matter who was president, theoretically, whether it's Trump, whether it's, Bob Dole, whether we knew exactly what they were going to do and it was predictable, we would have no idea what would happen in that case. But clearly there are some world events that could turn everything on its head, and we're not even gonna entertain that. So while we're waiting for a couple people to filter in, I want to say today I probably won't be interacting a ton with chat, but if you have a thought or you're like, I agree, but I have this other important thing, say the @ symbol and then FISHTORY or @Alex. And then I will see it more likely in the chat off to the side. Also, I'll be showing you guys, we're going to start with kind of like a broad scope talk of what's going on in the world, like where you get your fish. Like, for instance, the fact of who is breeding the most fish. That's something that has changed massively over 10 years. And it is important to where prices and tariffs and things are, but it's bigger than that, because you plan these things out. You farm raise fish 6 months, a year in advance. You plan out the ponds, you plan out the system. Are we going to breed them in tanks indoors and then grow them out in ponds, or are we going to grow them all out in tanks? And there's some limitations to that, and also big shifts in the US aspect of that. Now, also likewise, things change. Like, we know CPDs come from Myanmar, and for a long time, Celestial Pearl Danios, we've had a heck of a time getting good genetics out of those. A lot of times they have really deformed backs, the big hump, the sunken body, and then like really, really pale orange color rather than that super fiery deep red. Also, like, not a starry night blue background when they're colored up and happy. It's like a pale, darker, off silvery gray. And when those look good, they're incredible. But the genetics have been so just hammered with, they had to only use a few fish to start with, and then from there those fish got bred quickly and they were selling for $100 a piece back in like 2008 or so, 2010. And then from there, they got down to like $20 a piece, and then all the way down to, $5 or $10 a piece in the last 10 years or whatnot. And all fish kind of go through that cycle, and especially if they're brand new because they're a new species. But there's also some fish on the radar that like are just in again, because like for a long time, for instance, the Rio Xingu River, you couldn't collect there. You couldn't get pleco out of the river at all. And now, things have changed. They've had quotas change. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk kind of about some broad trends in the hobby that I see. Things like franchising. You go to Petco, you go to PetSmart, and you see that they've franchised like Star Wars characters, or the Grinch, the Stole Christmas figurines for the aquarium, glow light fish. So some of the stuff that, we'll talk about that kind of level of what I see coming, what I see changing, what I've heard through the grapevine, and what I've also, asked friends who live in China, who live in Indonesia, India, Bangladesh, ask, hey, what has been tooled up lately? Who put in orders? Did anybody else make filters that were using the same model as you? And so I have some insights that hopefully give me a unique perspective that I've built over the last decade or decade and a half being obsessed with fish. So good morning to all of you. Now that we're getting folks filtering in, I know this will be one that people watch on replay and later, and that's why I'm go ahead and doing it early while I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And you know, I love to start off singing even if it annoys some folks, and my singing is terrible, but I have one that's like it's kind of perfect for today. Some people think of the song as a bummer, but it's not. If you ask the creator of the song, he wrote it in 71. Into 72 it was recorded and released, and it was about just kind of the chaos in the world and just kind of like being a good person and just staying on a good path, but like not getting sucked into the negativity of the world. And it's not don't worry, be happy, don't worry. It's nothing cheesy like that. It is a little cheesy if I sing it, I suppose, but let's just get it out of the way, and then we'll jump right in to world of size events. Then we'll get to hobby size events, and then we'll get to the literal species, the fish that you want to breed. Obviously, that's what a lot of people care about. I will release a video on probably like the top 25 or top 30 species that I think people should breed for profit if they're trying to make a buck, that are sustainable. In years past, I haven't checked to see that they're sustainable. Now that's going to be part of the criteria. I'm not going to tell you guys to go out and harvest, you know, some really endangered thing just because you can, or if it's, you know, whatever. I mean, obviously, then I'd be saying golden arowanas, breed those, you know, in the US and get lots of money. Actually, that's not a good economic idea. I think you could make more money off selling guppies for 20 bucks a piece if you had a hot strain than arowana, because you'd have a self-limiting market by the nature of how big that. Anyways, you get it. So, oh, and hello, Hansel. Hello, and thank you so much for the Happy New Year's. Wishing my family the best. Well, I wish you the best as well. I do appreciate that, and a Happy New Year's to everyone, especially if you're down under or all the way in the Pacific Islands, and it's already 2026. Then wow. Pretty impressive. I don't know what time Australia, like Sydney, gets their New Year's rolling through, but it's got to be sometime around now. And on that note, a way you could never get to Australia. Old man lying by the side of the road with the lorries rolling by. Blue moon sinking from the weight of the load, and the buildings scrape the sky. Cold wind ripping down the alley at dawn, and the morning papers fly. Dead man lying on the side of the road with the daylight in his eyes. Don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Just find someone who's turning, and you will come around. Anyways, that's our little poem or song for the day. People might think that's a sad song because of the bleak imagery, but apparently it wasn't. He had just gotten over his, you know, his bad addictions and things, or at least was in a good spot. He was in England and recording a new album. That's Neil Young, by the way. Don't let it bring you down. But I can never play music, and I always want to play like classic rock and stuff. So, oh well. Too bad the licensing just doesn't work out. So let's talk about 2026 at the 8 minutes in. So someone can write on the comments later, show actually starts at 8:37, whatever. So 8:37. All right, let's get at this. And, you know, I'd say hello to each and every one of you. But like I said, I'm going to try to get through this thing because I know it's a hot topic, hot pocket. So let's pull up the map. Let's go to the map, folks. And let's pull up just, you know, Google. Actually, we'll pull up something. We'll go over things real quickly because I know you guys don't need a whole like rundown of this. You didn't sign up for this channel necessarily for socioeconomic lessons, but you know, it is a big part of what fish are available and like, you know, why and where and when and how much they cost and things like that. And I think sometimes knowing this stuff makes it more interesting to me, knowing that fish was discovered on some bizarre, you know, mountaintop that is isolated from all other watersheds. And so this fish evolved this special flap in its throat to be able to eat a certain kind of algae that only grow, or whatever, that, some crazy story about evolution. And then like over time, maybe there was only one predatory fish in the area, but in the last 100 years, something got introduced, and now the population has already changed to counter that. That kind of stuff to me is absolutely fascinating. And I know some people don't care, but to me, that's amazing. That's why it's so cool. That's so cool why, like, that's in our aquariums, that's in our house, that story, that the elements that are in everyday things that you have, even just when we are sitting here and you look at a pen, you think about, well, okay, it's made out of plastic. Well, the plastic came from oil. It probably came from hydrocarbons, most likely. And so where was that oil refined? Where was it drilled? Where were the plastic pellets combined with other refined products and turned into, like I said, little plastic pellets called nibs? And where were those nibs then melted down and extruded into forms? And then what kind of printing printed this aquarium club of South Coast of Florida? And then where did the purple dye come from? What chemical is that? Is it have some shared history with methylene blue? There are crazy, interesting connections in our world that all stem from anything we do. But in our hobby in particular, that's the whole point of FISHTORY. And that's why I want to bring it back. And it was too hard to do an edited episode this year. So I'm just going to do it this way, and we're going to keep it a little more. I mean, even though that's very specific, it's also very broad. It's not focused on one fish, right? So we're talking about a lot of big issues, but how they impact the hobby. That was an example with a pen, but now let's get into the hobby and talk about why some of the world politics and things really matter, right now, and what is going on. So let's share screen with the world map. And yeah, if you guys are watching and enjoying it, like, share, always helps with the channel for sure. Always helps the content go farther, helps me stay in business, as it were. And let's talk about the world. Okay, so secrets unveiled right now. You guys are learning the deep secrets, the deep cuts. Yeah, I'm in Washington. I'm in Seattle. But most of our fish around the world come from somewhere around the equator because they're warm, right? And we're going to talk a little bit when we get into species that maybe we should be keeping some more fish from, say, this area, North America. Maybe things like Elasoma, maybe things from Spain. Maybe there's some Middle Eastern and even out here in the Himalayan foothills and things, there's some very interesting fish that have been discovered in like Nepal this year, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, at Turkey. They have all had a ton of loaches and little cyprinids also discovered, things like barbs and stuff, all discovered throughout Asia this year. Also things like snakeheads and eels that are living, farther inland up in China or India. There's some really interesting stuff that we've kind of just walked by in the past. And it may be that, most of the time the people living there, they know there's 2 or 3 kinds of eels and they have a name for each one, but maybe science has never differentiated the fact that one village down the road has a different one than the other, and that maybe one has like a really interesting pattern or something. Like we see a ton of interesting stuff obviously coming out of, if we zoom in here, coming out of Africa. And right now the South Sudan is in probably the worst conflict in the world. We don't know. There's not enough reporters on the ground. It's so unsafe and unstable. And you might say, well, that's not important, but it feeds water all through Ethiopia, up the Nile, and then also that area. If you zoom in and you look through Uganda, South Sudan, and you look into these marshes and things, and all of a sudden you find, oh, actually, we get right into Lake Victoria. We get right into Lake Albert, Lake Kivu farther down, and Lake Malawi, Tanganyika, Rakua, you know, all these lakes that have really interesting fish. Here's Lake Malawi farthest down. And if you go up higher, you got Lake Victoria, the big one. But right now, all these lakes are facing quite a bit of havoc from, one, the tilapia that are actually a species from up north, like the Nile tilapia, as well as other tilapia too. But that is both creating new species that we're seeing, so new types of evolutionary traits are showing up in fish. So we're seeing things like new pharyngeal teeth or dentition, where we're seeing like they're being able to eat different kinds of micro prey and things like that. Or maybe they used to not have any sort of teeth up top on their mouth for rasping, but now certain fish are getting a sharper or rather like a wedge of a tooth. And we've seen that in several species where one side of the lake where there's, you know, steep drop offs into the water and rocks, and the other side it's maybe less so like that, and there's a little bit of vegetation, but none of these lakes have a ton of vegetation unless you get into the marshy areas. But they have very unique fish, and we're finding now that at least 20 new species, or at least subspecies, have been found in these areas. And so this is of interest to science, but it's also of interest to the hobby, because these things are constantly changing. Hello, everybody joining. Sorry if I'm not interacting a ton with the chat, but we're just going to keep rolling on talking about my predictions for 2026. And first, we're going with the global. So what are the big issues? And we're looking at ones that we can control. Of course, there's going to be things like hurricanes. And yes, a hurricane, an interesting fact, in case you didn't know, hurricanes are predictable by how much dust is kicked up here in the Sahara Desert. And the Sahara Desert has all the phosphates we could need. It's an old ocean bed that's been lifted. Also, it was green at one point and full of lakes and freshwater algae and freshwater microcrustaceans and things. But in that, there's lots of calcium, there's carbon, there's phosphorus, and there's minerals. And that gets thrown up into the air. And every raindrop you see has to have a molecule of something else for the rain to gather around, for it to precipitate. And then it collects around that, the water in the air, the humidity, and it needs the dust kicked up into the upper atmosphere from the Sahara, from deserts around the world, from the Gobi Desert, from the Sonoran Desert down in the south of the United States and north of Mexico, Gobi over in China and Asia. And over here, this is what kicks up our the amount of thunderstorms, and those little droplets of rain that have the phosphates that will recharge the Amazon and all of Central America, Cuba, the Caribbean. They don't have enough phosphates naturally for plants to grow. They run at a deficit in a lot of those places unless they're on some old deposit of a reef or something, which they are in the Caribbean in some cases. But a lot of these places are not, and or they don't have rich soil. And the Amazon, for years, they couldn't figure out, archaeologists and things couldn't figure out how humans were even growing things without completely depleting the soil. And it turns out that it rains 2% more than the Amazon actually needs every year. And that is also within like one. So out of that 2%, something like 1.99% gets washed away in the Amazon and back out to sea. And it becomes food and energy for plankton, just like phosphates and quartzite can cause things like diatom algae in our aquariums. Well, in freshwater, it can cause algae. It can cause the water to have different clarity and issues that then cause it to retain more light or allow little creatures to photosynthesize differently. So these thunderstorms that come through, and yes, a thunderstorm can come and it can cause enough turbulence in the air. And what causes the electricity, as you know, I've been struck by it, so I am fond of talking about this. The little particles, that phosphorus and that dust from the Sahara, will rise up to the upper atmosphere, 60,000 feet or whatever. And it can make for really pretty sunsets, but it also is what all those particulates of water form around, and around the coast off of Guinea and Mauritania, as well as like Ghana, Western Sahara, and out in the Pacific here, or Atlantic rather, sorry guys, that is where a ton of thunderstorms happen. Now, also right off the coast of South America in Guyana, Suriname, Venezuela, in Venezuela off Lake Valencia, and some of the other areas there, and in Colombia, right at this hook port, right, or this point here, this area, Maracaibo, sees some of the most thunder and lightning in the world. And there are some local reasons for that, but also it's because all that dust that was in the air is raining down. So it floats around in the upper atmosphere and swirls around and makes its way all the way across from the desert to over here. But you can tell by how intense the thunderstorms are, how many strikes of lightning, whether they're negative or positive, and how much energy was in the storms. You can tell how big the hurricanes will be entering into the Western Hemisphere and striking either the United States, or even if they're striking down into like kind of the monsoon season and the wet season. All of that is related to the Sahara Desert, which is crazy. So we don't know for sure, but obviously that can shape things. And I just wanted to, point that out, in that weather can shape things. There are a lot of places in Haiti that have been hit also by earthquakes and also by social unrest. But there are incredible little killifish and little brackish fish, as well as some little livebearers and things there that are now, kind of well, nobody's going to hear from them for a while. And even things like guppies that have been let go there, or gambusia. Same with Cuba. They've got their own genus of the Metallicus, the black chin metallic livebearers, and the lamias and things like that. They're living there, but when there's big rains, it can easily wipe out some of these things. And I think, in a way, it's why we don't see all of these kind of oddball livebearers that are from Central America, Cuba, and those islands. Now, you've probably heard of like maybe the Lamias. Maybe you've heard a little bit about the Goodeids too, but they rely on these rainstorms and these hurricanes and the wet season, basically, for their survival. They've adapted for these things. And so do a lot of the killifish that live in South America, and some of these really beautiful ones. And for that matter, the ones that live over in Africa, those beautiful killifish that have every color in the rainbow, those definitely rely on it as well. So I just wanted to mention weather. Obviously, that can affect big things over here too. The typhoons, as we call them, rather than hurricanes, can sweep into the Philippines, can sweep into Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Vietnam, cause big problems. The Democratic Republic of Congo, politically very unstable. Also, there is a lot of tension in the north. Also, Nigeria has been getting targeted, I guess, by U.S. forces to take out Boko Haram, which is a group that really has reigned all over kind of this, they call it the Sahel, and nothing to do with the sound of the word hell, but the Sahel region is this kind of savanna or like scrub brush in between the sand dunes and like epic desert that is the Sahara, and the arable lands, or the areas where like cattle and sheep can graze, where people inhabit it, as well as like nomadic people that are kind of deserty people. And these regions, basically from Mali over to Sudan and even into Ethiopia and Somalia, have been constantly having issues and wars. And there's an Islamic group that's kind of taken over a lot of these areas and is constantly at war. Also, like Western Sahara has been solidly taken over by those kind of forces and groups, but almost nobody lives out here, and there aren't that many fish there. But there are a lot of fish right in this belt, and places like Nigeria are the main hub where we get. So Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Guinea. These are places where we see things coming out and coming to Europe or to the US. And we also see things coming out of the Congo, but they almost always come out of Kinshasa, which is all the way here by the coast where the Congo ends. Not, I mean, it's not quite there. It's inland 100 miles or whatever, but it's not up where this massive turmoil is. Now, nothing is stable in this area anyways, but in Sudan, I do want to say that, you know, there are a lot of beautiful biodiverse areas. There are rivers, there are lakes, there are marshes. Also going into Uganda, the same ethnic groups. A lot of these other places, like the Okavango Delta that spills out into these regions over into Kenya as well. A lot of these people have been displaced everywhere from Somalia to Ethiopia to South Sudan. And literally this year alone, 4 million people came out of South Sudan, which is the newest country in the world. And it is being fueled by the UAE and Saudi Arabia, two different sides. And the US have kind of propped up different sides. Russia as well, and the Wagner Group, which is an independent militia group, kind of like, you know, there's South African ones, there's American ones, there's Russian ones, but you too can have a military if you have the money. But basically, they took over a village in South Sudan. Well, and when I say village, I mean a town of 250,000 people. And it was a very bad scene. It's still a very bad scene. Unfortunately, the people that are in the area that are, let's see here, Al-Fashir. Anyways, it doesn't, here it is, Al-Fashir. This place here we knew for 18 months. And look, there is water out here. There are areas out here where we see things like soda cichlids. We see things like the jeweled cichlids down in South Sudan. But over here and then also down in here in actual South Sudan, you see places where we know that the troops from basically the Arab-backed troops have come in and killed men, women, and children. I mean, it is the end of the world as far as they're concerned. They're burning down their villages. And so any fish coming out of these areas, very, very difficult. Now, the fact that some of the biggest biodiversity in the world is right in the frame on my screen right here. We are constantly getting fish out of the rift lakes at a pace that's actually, you know, not sustainable in some cases. And in other cases, there are parts of the rift lakes where we barely have people exploring other than a few fringe ichthyologists or really diehard people that are, you know, really, really into that and have a way to fund it, who are professors or independently wealthy people, you know, like Heiko Blair back in the day, or you know, that's what I'd say, like eccentric rich people who can just travel places. But also Ethiopia has some interesting fish, and, you know, we've learned interesting things about their fish lately, and they're unstable. They want to go back to war if they can with Eritrea and Djibouti. Also, the other big thing is that a lot of the stuff, so if you live in Europe, a lot of the stuff in the world goes through this Gulf of Aden. Remember when pirates were a big problem messing with the world things? Well, they're not so much an issue right now. I mean, they still are a little bit, but now we have, you know, world troops have united and they're standing out there stopping them. But they go through the Suez Canal and into the Mediterranean, or they have to go all the way around. And that changes the dynamic of, you know, things like prices of glass or plastic or injection molded goods from China, Indonesia, Taiwan, Myanmar. Things like the computer chips in Taiwan that regulate smart Bluetooth devices. A lot of, you know, Bluetooth is not super high tech. It's more the semiconductors and really high end stuff in like processing power that's going to come out of Taiwan. But for mainland China is where, and Korea as well as Japan, we see a lot of the chips and the LEDs and all that stuff that's in our gadgets. The stuff like the little component that tells when your heater's too hot and tells it to shut off, that breaks in like all of our heaters in our aquariums. You know, very, very rough. Some of those things are very, very cheap, and you know that is all shaped though by whether there's a free flow of those goods and services. And really there's two major points that you have to watch in world supply chain. One is the Strait of Malacca right here, and how the ships are going to get through either right here by Singapore, or they could squeeze through here, but they usually go through Singapore. That's why Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Jakarta is pretty close, but you know, it's why those places are huge cities, and why that area is a massive trade region for the last 600-700 years. Also, it's why, you know, Yemen and Oman were massive, rich empires of trade, and Somalia at one point. I mean, this is the whole Nubian Empire in between Sudan all the way to Ethiopia, Somalia. You got Nubia and Kush and all those places. You also have another Kush up in this region up in Asia, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, so if the Suez Canal has a problem, there's a problem with world goods. So things like your aquariums, your heaters, your fish food, stuff that can slow travel, that's where we see that. Stuff like we saw impacted on COVID, that's where we're going to see that stuff impacted. Also, we have the Panama Canal. And if you look at the Panama Canal, cool canal, a man, a plan, Panama. It's the longest, I think that's one of the longest anyways, sentences that you can say where it's the same forward as backwards. But they have this canal, obviously, and now there's these major problems. So you know that this is a tropical area, as we pointed out. So if you look at the equator, it's just above the equator. Lots of cool fish in Colombia and Panama. And right here, where they come through, now these super tankers from China can come either way, and they can come and go from places like Los Angeles, or, you know, if they're coming from Japan and they're headed to Europe, they can either come that way all the way across the Pacific, or they can come all this way and cut through here, which is probably a little faster to Europe. And so it's kind of interesting though how all these things flow. And in the Panama Canal region right now, we're finding that the Panama Canal itself has caused these lakes to become salt lakes, right? To some degree, they're brackish. And in the canal, along the canal route, it is now, we're finding that the Pacific fish have made it all the way to the Atlantic, whether that's in bilge pumps of those massive boats, or whether that's on their own. But that's not good. That's causing some massive issues in the ecology of these places. And it's going both ways. And also the freshwater lakes, the places we see things like convict cichlids, red devils, you know, these really cool big species of cichlids. The big mean ones are all from Central America, right, guys? That's going on. But, you know, the other place that China has considered building a canal is Nicaragua. They have thought of that, or Guatemala also. And it's kind of crazy, but or not Guatemala, sorry. Another spot in Panama was what they were thinking for a while. But yeah, in Nicaragua, the idea was maybe they could, you know, go through something like this area here that doesn't have too huge of mountains, do a lock system, and then come out through here, through this area. But I don't know where anything stands with that. And the US probably, especially under Trump, will not stand for that. And so I'm all for not doing another canal. I don't think the world needs that right now. There's enough traffic that goes through there, and you know, yes, it gets busy sometimes, but it's never so busy that like we're backed up for weeks, unless there's something like COVID or whatnot. Okay, so last things in the world stage that I think we should look out for. Obviously, there's things like wars in Ukraine, Russia, that could totally destabilize your country if you live in Poland or if you live in Germany. Obviously, if it became some really huge situation where everyone's getting sucked in, or Russia does something very aggressive, or the US does something very aggressive, whatever, then we could conjecture we could go anywhere with that. You know, the Middle East has been relatively quiet as far as things go, other than Israel. And as much as people may care about that, we don't have to touch it. And even though Israel is up and coming as one of the biggest suppliers of koi and goldfish, they are not on the list the last couple years. They have grown. They're like number 8 or something, number 10 for those kind of fish, but they're not up there for ornamental fish. And for a while, they were making a big play to do that. And now we see that the Netherlands, this little country here, the Netherlands and Czechia, the Czech Republic, as it was once known, Czechoslovakia, whatever you want to call it. I know different cultures call it different things. Let's call it Czechia, the local nomenclature, I guess. And Poland and Germany, you know, are big producers. Germany is more like a hobbyist producer and an importer, but those are big producers of fish. And the biggest, the top 3 have been between Japan, Indonesia, and then Singapore. And if you want your mind blown, I mean, look at Singapore. It is a city on basically an island in a marsh on the tip of the continent. And this city right here is responsible for like a ton of arowana and some of like all the flower horns, not all of them, but a lot of them, and tons of shrimp and all sorts of other stuff. So it is a massive seller. And if not primary seller, it is definitely the reseller of a lot of things. Now, the next in line for places 4, 5, 6, what you see is that Indonesia has muscled in right up to be in the top 3 with Singapore, with Japan, also Hong Kong, as well as Guangdong and Guangzhou and Shenzhen, all these southern cities. They're near manufacturing places. So this belt here of industry, these big cities, it's unlike, I mean, if you don't know about China, like forget New York to DC, this is like 1 billion people right here. And this area is where everything in the world is essentially made. You know, if you have a thingamabob sitting on your aquarium, there's some part that came from this region, almost certainly. Even if it says, you know, Fluval, manufactured in Italy, or, you know, made in France, or whatever it may be, made in Switzerland, they probably got their plastic pellets from that place, or they probably got a semiconductor for your Bluetooth, you know, or the Bluetooth chip, or whatever it may be. They got that stuff from China, and then they put it together in these places. So those things are all contingent to your local policies and to tariffs and imports. And yes, 10%, 20%, it does make a difference. Is it enough that it's crazy, that it beats inflation a ton? I don't know, but I think, you know, here's the overall big trend. So really, those are the big issues in the world. The minor local issues that are going to really impact species diversity are going to be the fact that Borneo, this island, this giant island, one of the biggest in the world, Borneo and Papua New Guinea are both becoming basically taken over by Chinese interest. And Malaysian, Chinese, Indonesian, yes, there are European, yes, there are American, yes, there are Canadian companies and Australian companies doing mining there. But the rights and I mean, if we let's go to satellite view. Let's see here. Terrain, is this the satellite view? No. Why is it not? I don't know why it's not changing my view. No? Okay, I don't know. Maybe I can go Now will it let me? No. Okay. Well, anyways, you can play around yourself and look around the mountains here in like West Kalimantan. You know, all the incredible rainbow fish in the world. They're coming from basically this, you know, wait, hold on. Let me get it right. Basically, this clip screen right here, ignore the whole ocean part here, like Tonga, Samoa, that doesn't matter. This Australia and Papua New Guinea and Northern Australia, coastal Australia, and that is where all the hundreds of rainbow fish that we know and love come from. So many gobies, all your Stephodon species, they come from this picture. All your rasboras, they come from a crop of about this. All, you know, your white cloud minnows and things like that, they're from either China or Vietnam. And you've got all these beautiful, you know, denison barbs and all your danios and things. If they're from India, there's a good chance that they're actually from Assam, this region of India, which if you didn't know the geography, it's kind of cut off from the rest of India. But right now, there is still a civil war in Myanmar. The government controls Yangon, and they've kind of, I don't know, they've moved the capital unofficially a couple times, Mandalay also. And all the outskirts, so places like Lake Inle that has 50 unique species in its watershed, things like CPDs, things like Galaxy rasboras, things like Axelrodi, Sundadanios, which are also, you know, they're down here, but the red little Sundadanio looking guys, the Danionellas, the clear smallest fish in the world genus, you know, only half an inch fully grown, vampire, there's one named Vampire Danionella or Dracula Danionella that is super tiny, but all those things, hold on, you can Google these fish. Wait, by the way, can you Google these three fish? Pseudo, no, I'm not going to Google any fish right now. I'm just looking at chat real quick. I'm not going to Google any fish right now. We can do that on another live stream. But what I'm saying is that I'm covering some issues that basically strip mining is going on here, and it's being done very cheap. It's also going on in any war zone you see it, but also a lot of developing nations. The fact that the U.S. is no longer doing USAID aid, also no longer are they going to be clearing any of the minefields or bombed regions of Laos or Cambodia. We were defusing things, and now that's up to the locals. And things like that you wouldn't think have a big impact, they actually kind of do, because you might be getting things like the last Somphong rasboras from somewhere in Thailand or Cambodia. You might be getting the last of certain wild betta species or whatnot. And there can be something like that that then makes it unsafe, and they need to then get a certain permit to go to a certain area that's been cordoned off as dangerous. And some of these things can actually impact like why you don't see a certain fish for 10 or 20 years or whatnot. And there's all those issues, and that's just one example of one that I happen to know about and I've talked to people. But also the development of these Chinese resort villages where they're trying to make some resort places in Cambodia as well as Thailand. These big companies have come in and they are tearing down wetland areas that were very cheap historically to buy. But some of the betta species that are, you know, absolutely incredible are from just one or two water basins that are very, very narrow. Also, the other big world event, damming of rivers, and specifically talking about damming the Mekong River. And there are 9 dams China is planning, 6 of which are kind of in a row. But that means that silt does no longer washes down the river from the Himalayas. That nutrients, like I talked about, in the sky that flies around from deserts, that actually does that from the Gobi Desert. And that's partially why China is so fertile is the winds will go there. The winds also will go down into India, over the Himalayas, and then it rains on the Himalayas, and we get like rainforests, cloud forests, and jungles all through these regions. Also, you get monsoons coming off the ocean, and that's why we have, you know, some of the biggest biodiversity hotspots, places like Borneo that have, you know, whatever it is, 14% of the species of, you know, animals in the world live, you know, on that island or whatever it may be. It's absolutely insane. Some of these places, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, the heart of the Amazon, and the heart of Congo, or some of these other places have, it doesn't mean that they necessarily are the only ones, but each of those places harbor like somewhere between 10 and 20% of the world's diversity. Now, that being said, sure, an elephant can also exist in, you know, Ghana, Ethiopia, and South Africa, but it's also a species listed from the Congo, right? So those are all issues to keep an eye out for on the big world stage. Also, you know, Paraguay is open for whatever we want to import. Also, sorry guys, Paraguay down here, and then also up here, what I was going to say is Guyana. You know, there's things like the Equus pencilfish that we just weren't seeing for 11 years because it wasn't being imported, because, like I said, same with the Rio Xingu, certain rivers or even whole countries will stop export because of certain things. Or maybe there's just not a company that's in the business of exporting. And right now, most of the things that come out of French Guiana, Suriname, Venezuela, and don't get me wrong, the Orinoco Basin, I mean, look at Ivan Mikolji's photography work. There are so many unique species that exist there. Now, do a lot of those species also exist down here into northern Brazil and Guyana? They kind of cross over? Yes. But also what we saw was, you know, that right now the U.S. is interested in stopping a lot of the oil coming out of Venezuela. But earlier we heard that this whole chunk of Guyana right here, there's a border, and right here, like there's a border on this river. And I don't know why. I'm actually surprised Google has put this border here, right on the word Guyana, because almost everyone in the country lives right there on the coast in all these places, to be frank. There are like a third or a quarter of the people that live deeper in that are more Amerindian and live along the river somewhere, but they want the gold that's in these places. And Venezuela said, we are taking this whole half or a third, 2/3, who knows what they were going to say, but they officially added it to their map. And Guyana doesn't really have an army. Venezuela doesn't, frankly, have much of an army either. So what does that really mean? Who knows? But we know that this whole area is just massively exploited by illegal mining and also by deeds of mining companies. We also saw that green carbon tax initiative in Brazil 2 years ago, if you remember on my world rundown. It turned out that Microsoft, Amazon, you know, Ford, GM, all these companies were paying carbon credits to preserve land in the Amazon that supposedly would save carbon. They were taking that money, this company in Brazil that was run by one family, and they took the money from that and they literally bought the land as they said they were, but then they strip mined it, bought bulldozers, bought the big machines, millions of dollars. It was 1.4 billion, I believe, in corruption that they could trace back in carbon credits that people thought they were doing good, yet nobody had gone down there to validate and check. And the government of Brazil allowed, under Bolsonaro, allowed that to happen. And they basically said, we'll take it all from this one family, but they couldn't recover over $1 billion of it. And now they can set that land aside and say, yes, we're going to try to protect it. But it's very hard to protect these regions deep in the Amazon. And, you know, you may have seen the fish, the CW 217, which is a beautiful Corydora. And it's Corydorus that does it's known as Corydorus concolor. I think it's a hoplosoma, but anyways, it's half bluish gray, half orange or tan colored. Absolutely beautiful, and it's coming out of either Colombia somewhere or the very north of Brazil. I don't know exactly, but if you look down at the equator, so see the line cutting across South America, well, basically everything from about the equator south in Colombia, as well as some of the region above that, was also off limits. And that was under an area that was just, you couldn't go there if you were foreign. The Colombian, you go at your own peril, essentially. So no universities, no colleges, no institutions were saying, yeah, let's do a research of the rivers down there, because since the 1970s, there have been militant groups, both left and right-wing groups, running the illegal commodities trade. And this whole state of Amazonas is really a rough place. Same with Peru, this whole northern corner, even part of Ecuador here. It's very, very corrupt, and it's very, very dangerous once you get into these regions, especially if you're poking around as a representative of a government or a big institution that might report these activities. If you're backpacking, or if you just want to go collect fish as your hobby, as someone traveling, that may still occur in some of these places. People are still getting into Myanmar. I still have friends who are going to Myanmar, even though it's a war zone. But there is not the stable, consistent export of fish. There's not the stable, consistent exploration going on in some of these places when that stuff happens. And Colombia opened up a few years ago. So Colombia is now fully, in theory, you could travel there. They probably still would advise to bring massive security, and that makes it very expensive. And then it's like, is it going to happen? Is it only Colombians that are going to do it? We don't know. This kind of central area between all of Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, all these areas, they become kind of these no man land, almost cowboy town kind of places. Iquitos as well. Dr. Mazerol's down there. That's the last of the big cities, basically coming from the west side of the continent. And then over here, none of these are big cities, all tiny, tiny cities. Manaus is the next one. And basically everything in here is just massive expanses, 1,000 miles of jungle and fish habitat. And the exporters are mostly, other than here, and also you see some of them come out of Belém. Some of them come out of, there are others, but, we see, you might recognize some of these places when you look around, like, oh, here's the word Zingu. Here's the word, wait, where'd it go? Mato Grosso. So you've seen probably Corridoras or plecos with these names. Belém is another one where you see plants with those names. But Rio and Sao Paulo, these are the two big capital cities. And up here, really, you have to go a long ways to even find other large cities. And there's a lot to be discovered. There's interesting sand dunes out here that basically it's crazy sand dunes for miles and miles, and the water table of fresh water is above the sand dune level. So how sand dunes have a trough and a peak, it's like halfway between them there's water, and it's fresh water, yet it's out by the coast. There's absolutely otherworldly places, and that's one where there's a walking catfish and all sorts of killifish and interesting things. The Pantanal is another place, also the Guianan Shield, and in Venezuela places like Angel Falls, this southern area of Colombia, and then getting up into these foothills like Cali. This area is also not, even though there's a lot of people that live here, this is a strictly controlled region. The Cali family and cartel and the Medellin-based cartel back in the day used to run things, but now the Cali family and the what are they called? The Ramirez clan. They run a bunch of everything from stealing jaguars out of the Amazon to flying them over to China from Cali and Bogota and Medellin, or from, you know, places like Quito. That's where a lot of the organized crime comes from too. It's gold, it's you know, it's guns and money coming south and money coming over from Asia, and then it's animal body parts and live animals and stuff that's going up into North America, Europe, over to Nigeria as well. And then from Nigeria, a lot of it enters through Spain or Portugal. And that's true with things like drugs as well. But I want to get this there. I don't want to get into all that. But yes, you make such a good point in that there are probably so many fish still undiscovered. We are discovering, you know, something like 250 to 300 new fish a year. And because of, you know, and that's what's described scientifically, the binomial nomenclature. But it really is way more than that. There's actually, you know, something like 700 or 800 new fish encountered each year. And there's people out there, like, for instance, Ian Fuller, you might know, or Anton Lomboge, people out there that are these, you know, well-known names that may have, oh yeah, there's a Corydorus, there's a pleco, you know, Sosa, Leandro Sosa. I just was talking to him when he came to Seattle, and he was saying that there's a good, you know, 40 or 50 plecos that he can, you know, think of that exist but don't have a proper name right now, or nobody's written a paper to discuss that, like, up the river there's one kind and down river there's another one, like one has stripes, one has spots. And in some cases it also goes the other way, where there's a species that's listed as, oh, these are totally different, one's a foot long and one's half a foot long, and one is blue and one is green. And it's like, well, it might just be the nutrient difference in between, and actually those are totally, they can interbreed, and in the middle they're half of each kind or in between those traits. So the species now are getting split up a lot more by genetics than just morphology, because before we had to go by the phylogeny charts and seeing who evolved from what and what traits they evolved, and skeletal and physical remains and things. And from there, we had to kind of do a lot of guesswork, look at like teeth and look at colors of things. And as you know, species is a tricky topic. So things like, yes, there are 3 new rice fish that were discovered this year, roughly. So there's one for sure that was named, but there's 2 that are in Sulawesi that are still waiting for names, and that have been identified even in a paper that was published. There was a paper published about the 3 rice fish of Sulawesi and is it Belitung Island, Indonesia. And they were saying that, like, these are clearly new species, but we've differentiated them, but nobody's done the workup for each one, and they're waiting genetic DNA stuff. So absolutely fascinating. Also, that's a great another thing just to say to everybody who's in here right now. Happy New Year's if you're watching this in the future. Happy New Year's if you're watching this in the past. I mean, wow, time traveler. So I don't know what to tell you. You're smarter than me. But yeah, have a happy 2026 this evening to everyone. Or if it's coming up on evening over in Europe or Asia, I hope you guys are enjoying the night safely, having a good time. Fireworks and bright things and fish tanks. And, you know, tonight would be the night to turn on those, like, purple LEDs that come with your fish tank that you're like, why does this have this? So I want to talk about now, on that note, we talked about the big global issues. We're an hour in. Let's talk about the trends in the hobby, okay? So this, to me, you guys can help. Let me know if you're in, you know, Croatia and you say, actually, we've only been getting rimless tanks the last 2 years. You know, that's all the rage here. because I had a girl, I mentioned this a number of years ago, 7 years ago now. She watched the channel and she had never seen tanks with plastic rims before. Now, to her, that was great because you could set things on it, you could clip things on it. It didn't chip. It wasn't like a stress point for the aquariums. And so they were like, I think that's so cool that you guys have those rims and that you can set the aquarium on something sturdy and then, you know, even if it's not level, it's not going to like rock or whatever. The bottom glass isn't what's going to shatter. And I hadn't thought about it. Well, she looked all over. I think it was Slovenia is where she was. And she'd looked all over and couldn't find them. Everything was rimless where she lived because everybody was emulating that kind of aquascaping Japan style. That's what they wanted in new tanks, or they made their own tanks or had existing ones. And she literally trimmed pieces of plastic to put a rim on her tank that structurally served no function really. But she sent me a picture and was like, look, I made a plastic tank just like you have. So kind of wild. Let's see here, chat. Very bad internet, and I wanted to know if he answered my question about the content of fish. Let's see here. What was the question? I'm looking. Did anybody tag me in a question with @Alex? I'm not seeing it. Or @FISHTORY. Oh wait, maybe here. I'm not looking up fish. I'm actually stopping engaging with chat other than if you have something to add to the topic at hand, just because I'll get way off topic other than just saying hello. And I don't mean any offense by that. I love you all. I couldn't do this without you. We will have other streams like normal where we all just sit and chat and we can Google whatever our hearts desire. I'm sure there's cool fish out there, but yeah. So the next step I want to talk about are trends, overall trends. I think that in America, that's the trend I can speak for. I think we're going to see a lot of purchases in that $40 to $80 range. And Estee Lauder, who owns like a ton, or he passed away. Estee Lauder and I'm trying to think of the other one. Anyways, the famous cosmetic lipstick, perfume, you know, kind of like Chanel and Christian Dior level stuff, own prescriptives and MAC and cosmetics like that. They noticed by the late 70s, early 80s that their life around the industry, people bought triple the lipstick when the economy was slow. Not if there was all-out depression and like food was too expensive to eat. Like literally dinner was the problem at hand each day. That's a different level. But the things that the US has seen in our lifetime, these depressions where, yeah, you maybe lost your house, you had to downsize. Maybe one car is all the family can afford. Those things hurt. People are still willing to buy little luxuries. And liquor, like expensive liquor, like $80 bottles, people still buy that. So I think there is a chunk of, you know, the aquarium hobby that is still going to treat buying a new fish or a new plant as their little treat for the week or for the month. And I think that we're safe in a way for some of those higher priced items. I think in the next year, we will see not just $5 bread and butter fish. Well, I think there will be an overall slide to, yes, buying the cheapest thing possible. People will probably go back to buying a lot of fish from big box stores and realizing, oh, you get what you pay for. Maybe I should buy from more online people or more local breeders or whatever, you know. And of course, I will continue to support places that I have walked through, that I know well, that I know how they treat their employees, their fish, and how they handle those things. And of course, aquatic arts will be my go-to. And, you know, Imperial Aquatics, that's another one I go to. Dan's fish if I'm starting a breeding project, but I can't stock my tank with his fish. It's too expensive. But if I had the money, I would. Same with like ADA stuff. Like right now, I will be doing a build in the start of the year, going over CO2, going over ADA lily pipes that are glass tubes and how you would clean that, and the pros and cons of having a beautiful, clear, expensive, but I mean, it is the Porsche Ferrari of aquarium pieces, yet the upkeep is way more because you need to make sure that there's not algae growing in it, right? So then you end up needing a bottle brush or a scrubber or denatured, whatever, vinegar or alcohol or hydrogen peroxide, and you're cleaning it and you're having to take everything apart, and it ends up being more work. Now, some people only have one aquarium and they would rather have that maintenance, that work is part of what they enjoy. Just like others enjoy feeding their fish. Others enjoy sitting and just watching their fish. That's what I enjoy. If I could do no work on the aquariums, of course I like to watch them eat, but I like to watch them do everything. I like to sit across the room and observe what they're doing. And I think that, a lot of fish, we've become accustomed since COVID and the lockdowns and things. A lot of us have become accustomed to buying fish online. Also, we know that the hobby expanded at its peak in 2023. So this sounds odd, but we're looking at plants and we're looking at Google search rates from users who never have searched for it before. So we were looking at search rates of things like first time search for cycling an aquarium. And you can see that the guess was somewhere between 3 and 5 times the amount of people that normally kept fish were at least trying keeping fish by 2022 and 2023. That's insane. Houseplants worldwide, 9 times the sales increase by 2023. So when you look at the numbers, I don't have them handy right now for what 2025 did, but what I do have is what a lot of store owners and people have told me. And then that is that a lot of the people that got into this, they're either busy with work and maybe they built a fish room or they built a fish rack and they've got a number of things, but they don't have the time. Or maybe they were just in college or whatever and they don't have the time. They've got kids, or maybe their work picked back up its pace. In other places, you see that people have more time because their kids were home during the lockdowns and during that uncertainty. But that really was a marker that will change not just society and things, but obviously our hobby our hobby is going to have that as a watermark or as an earmark in the story of the hobby. World War II was one because that drove things like technology of plastic bags, the jet engine. It allowed us to get fish from South America to London in one day, right? That was not possible before the jet engine. It wasn't very feasible. Before that, it could have hopped on prop planes, and it did, but it usually came slow freight, and it usually came with a bunch of other fish that were being kind of cared for as like a whole fish store on a ship coming in, or a whole load. Absolutely bonkers the way it used to be. It's even just getting your fish home, you would bring a mason jar, or they would give you something that was a waxed box or a jar or a waxed paper container that you would then take home. The thing you think of as Chinese to-go food boxes or Indian takeout food boxes were first actually used for lots of things, but they were first designed for things like carrying liquids and soups and foods, but also just as valid was like fish in the 1890s onward. Before that, they used actual metal milk cartons, and you would bring your own, or you'd bring a mason jar and bring your own. Anyways, that's getting off track. But what I'm saying is that lockdown, even if you were only locked down a week, even if you weren't locked down at all, and you're like, we didn't have a lockdown where I live, we didn't listen to it.
whatever it may be. It changed everything because the economics of it allowed people to basically sit around online, and a lot of people work from home. Maybe you didn't, but a lot of people did. And a lot of people felt alone, and a lot of people felt like, I don't want to go out and see folks. I want to connect with nature. I'm feeling like cabin fever, cooped up. I want to bring a little bit of that outdoor world, a little bit of that intrigue and interest into the house. Well, that all, you know, aquarium, terrarium, vivarium, what's a better hobby? But a lot of people were intimidated to jump in and start aquascaping right away. So I think also what we've seen the last 2023, 2024, 25, and we'll see it still going on, is some of the people that jumped in and they kept guppies, or maybe they kept a betta at first, and then a year later they got more into it and they started breeding this or that, or maybe they started a business selling mystery snail food, or, you know, whatever it may be. There's all these stories out there that I run into. It may be that those were first like forays into the hobby, and those people are just now peaking. So I think we'll see more advanced people peaking than ever before. So we'll have more breeders at a high level. We'll have more young people in the hobby than ever before. And I think in an era where a lot of people are glued to their devices, and the content, rather than sitting and watching an hour-long show about fish or educational stuff, we're seeing less and less of that being produced, obviously. My long videos are kind of an anomaly in the hobby. Like a deep dive into anything, quite frankly, is an anomaly in the hobby. But once you're obsessed thoroughly with fish and you have your niche, like I love catfish, or I love annual killifish, or I love Tanganyikan fish, you'll find those things absolutely fascinating, probably. But there's podcasts like watercolors. I think that they'll probably do well. They've been doing well and better. But I think that they really will secure a place to go. Also, native fish species, and the interest in going out and seeing what's in your local waterways, that got really popular during the last 5 years. And so I think that will be something that is free and that a lot of people will do because they can keep those fish in a pond. All you really need is enough churning water, aeration, to keep your fish happy so that they don't overheat, and something to protect them from, say, birds and raccoons or coyotes or whatever's in your area that may, house cats, that may eat the fish. But you can keep a lot of interesting fish in ponds too. Now, I've predicted in years past that rice fish and native fish, eventually we're going to see their time. And rice fish just can't seem to take off. Everybody I ask is like, I love them, they're cool, I've kept some. And that's kind of where it ends. I don't see that many people keeping the fancy Japanese strains of rice fish still. Part of it is that they're like $20 a pop still for really fancy ones. I wonder if in these following years, if the economy continues, inflation continues as it is, we're kind of in a dip. Maybe there'll be a rebound. Right now, obviously, the stock market is really volatile, but it's been good. It's going up, up, up. Some days it crashes down a couple thousand points and then rises even more the next. That's unheard of, like other than right after the Great Recession in 2008. But maybe that's the new normal, and maybe maybe there will be that going on with your 401k and your retirement, but your paycheck, which ultimately decides what you're going to have money to spend on for like fish and things like that. I think that is obviously what will determine what goes on. And I will be interested to see if the thing I talked about with the lipstick recession and the idea that like that 40 to 80, probably these days with inflation, it's more like $60 to $100 range, is a treat you can afford for yourself like once a month or every other month. Now, I'm not saying everyone, I'm saying your person who makes 80 grand a year, 100 grand a year or whatever. If you live in a big city or whatnot, like maybe that's in your budget. Other people, it might be maybe you have time, maybe you go out and collect, maybe you build yourself an aquarium like plywood. So I think we could also see a decent rise in DIY building of, like, the old school, like Joey, king of DIY. I think now there hasn't been a better time. There's more people into the hobby, more people that want to save money. I mean, obviously, everyday items, food, gas, that stuff's expensive. For me, I know it's different in different places. I live in Seattle, where gas is highest in the country, along with California and Hawaii. Real estate's the highest in the country. Can't find a house for under $500,000. The average house price in Seattle is $990,000, I believe. It's jumped between 900,000 and $1 million the last 5 years. But I mean, that's crazy. And there's a class of people that can rent, and still, I know people and myself who've rented and had fish tanks, had a couple, have maybe even a rack of fish. And so I think nano fish will continue to be popular. I know there's other parts of the country where for 200 grand, you can have a nice house, and you can get a house built 20 years ago that's, 2,500 square feet on half an acre of land in the suburbs of some minor town or minor city metro area, Wichita or something, or Topeka. But now with the internet, you can buy fish online. And so I think those little luxury purchases aren't just going to be people in the city. I think it's going to be people who make money other ways too. And I think it will be tough though for ma and pa stores. That's what's going to be really tough. Is, are people going to go in and still buy their fish food or that small item at a local store? Now, obviously, we all like going to look at fish in person and being able to pick out like that one, because I know it's not it doesn't have ick or whatever. But I think the whole trend of listing the actual fish, or, like, places need to online literally start showing, and it's too much work to upload pictures of every fish, obviously. But if they're fish that are $100 a pop, then yeah, I would want to see actual pictures of each fish. That is something that I think would be doable. But I think beyond that, like, you could do something like a setup of webcams and allow people to take a glimpse or post once a week on social media, walking down the line, each tank for 30 seconds. You could tell people, hop online, check out what's going on. That's what I try to do with Moonlight Aquatics for you guys. When I go in there, I try to just show you, like, this is how the fish look. Some, they still don't have their color. They haven't put on their weight because they're still stressed. They only got here a week ago. Others, they've been there three months or whatever waiting, and there's only a few left, but get them while you can because they're super good deal and they're super healthy, that kind of stuff. So I do think that fish stores will need to be innovative. I do think that also fish big box stores are going to be brutal on those stores, because a lot of those stores have started selling bread and butter fish. But also you see things like, Aquarium Co-op, they're a good company to watch, because he's learned he's not like in-house making a whole lot of things, right? It all comes from China, and it's all retooled, and it's his thoughts or his employees, the innovation, whatever, that his company has put into things, changing little things, tweaking things, listening to the hobby, and then making it and bringing it back. That is like where they've made their money. Now they just had their millionth order at Aquarium Co-op. So congratulations to them. But they're not a ma and pa store anymore, even though they started as my ma and pa store, so to speak. They started as, I thought they were going to be a co-op store when they started. Like, I thought it was going to be a place we all brought the fish we were breeding and swapped them for court credit or whatever, but nothing farther from that. He learned to stay away from the fish, and that online was a scary business. And he's right. That is a risky business. Whoever sells fish online, they have to deal with a ton of complaints. They have to deal with the post office or UPS or FedEx, whoever dealing with the fish, and and whatever is going on economically or with the weather or with holidays and things like that, logistics wise. And if the mailman just decided to drop kick the box or whatever, then they have to deal with if the person knew that it was on their porch and if they got it in time, or if it's 30 degrees below zero, or if it's 105 and they're sitting in the sun. And the companies that do that and even have like an 85% success rate, to me, I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, but seriously, like Dan's with a 99.8% success, positive feedback rate. That's why you would pay $10 for a neon tetra. If you live out in the sticks, but you're a doctor in a small town or something, or you're a lawyer, or maybe you own a bunch of rental properties, and or maybe you're a plumber with a plumbing company. You're the kind of person that probably has the money that if you wanted to, you could spend $100 ordering 10 or 12 or whatever it is neon tetras, and they would be healthy. They wouldn't get your other fish sick, and you're willing to drop that once a month or whatever to add a new school of beautiful, highest quality tetras to your tank. Now, in between that range, I think places like Moonlight Aquatics, Imperial Aquatics, Aquatic Arts, honestly, I think that's where, yeah, you might want to still quarantine. Yeah, there's a chance that 1 or 2 out of 24 might have an issue, but I still judge those places with high regard, and I still know that they wouldn't send out anything substandard. Same with the Wet Spot. Also, that's another one that I don't have affiliation with, but I wish I did, because I would promote them all the time. But those places, a select few others, I think that's really those places are going to be really important. And there was a window there where ma and pa stores and going in person, everyone got hooked online, and then they went back to their local area. Fish clubs experienced from 2022 to 2025 now, a massive growth, like double, triple. A lot of clubs were formed for the first time. And we saw that because those people got in when the lockdown and all that stuff was going on. Now we have to see, does it stick? Does it stay? And that's where we really need to be a community and pass on the word. Like, who's opening? Like, I know Jody is going to have Tropical Fish Co. They're going to be opening an online store or online sales. And it's like, when they do good, like, share that with each other. Like, let's make it be known. Like, let's lift up the hobby, especially when it's something like, maybe it's a little more for this or that. If it was done right, let's be honest and frank with each other about that. That's what I hope for in 2026, because of course everyone wants to pay $1.99 for the tetra. And yes, there are a lot of common tetras that may have only been like 29 cents from the wholesaler, but then you add 50 cents of shipping or $1 of shipping to get it into the country. Then you have the time of going to pick it up in a van from the airport, and then sorting it and throwing away all the trash and renting a place to keep it and heat it and do this or that, to chew water changes, who's taking care of the fish for the week that they're there, who's buying the medication, are the fish healthy, you're feeding some fish. I mean, a lot of places used to turn and burn so quick that they didn't even feed their fish in before they'd sell them, like Arizona Gardens. I'll put them on blast. Live Aquaria, which is maybe operating, that's the biggest online retailer there was. They really were just, though, a middleman, so to speak, for importers, and then they were a website. They put that out there, and you picked what you wanted, and then they basically ordered things from overseas and hope that the sheer volume, they could keep the price down. But there was no backstock other than basically the transshipping facility. So yes, there are tanks somewhere, but there wasn't enough that they could hold them for months or whatever, or that they could, if they got a very skinny load, like it turns out, oh, these are really young, I don't want to sell these yet. They aren't going to hold them. They aren't going to get them fat. They're going to be like size small, mark them down 20%, And to me, at least having the transparency of knowing that about a company, that's worth a lot. And so that's why, like, I do plan again also to go out to Aquatic Arts as soon as I'm able to travel again. That's been something I've wanted to do, show their new facility. Breeding in-house. So Imperial Tropicals, they aren't an affiliate of mine or anything, but I'm going to shout them out. They are building a whole new warehouse, both for imports but also for the fish they grow. And they're in Florida, so heat's free, the sun, even the bugs for the fish to eat outside, a lot of that could be subsidized if not free. And yet all of that, it's kind of they still want to do it indoors to have control over like things like small cichlids, the dwarf cichlids, any of the shrimp. They might have them getting some sunlight or ambient temperature from Florida, and that does save some money compared to, say, Fargo, North Dakota, that would have to heat and cool stuff. But really, they're expanding like a Costco-sized building to keep doing breeding of rare and endangered or care species. And it's not like bread and butter stuff that they're breeding. That's they do platies and mollies and stuff like that. They do that outside in the big ponds. So there's that. Okay. So what other trends? So now we kind of talked about the big picture. Let's get a little more specific. So I mentioned at Petco and PetSmart, they're trying to sell. They don't give a damn about if the fish are happy. They're trying to get you and or your kiddo, get you to buy them their first fish tank, right? And they have these tanks lately that have LED, Bluetooth connectivity, speakers. They had like a disco or dance club fish tank I saw. It was just discontinued. They have a black light that like is real like trim and like black. The glass is kind of like half tinted on the sides or smoky, and then the bottom has LEDs and stuff. So I think we're gonna see some kind of some plays by big companies, and we'll see this out of China too. So you'll see places like Temu selling like a skull-shaped aquarium that fits on your wall. Like, please just ignore all that crap. Like, think about your fish. Like, what would a skull-shaped aquarium be like for a fish to live in, right? I mean, maybe you could put a goldfish in it for a photo shoot or something, but like, how do you even put substrate in? Like, how could you make that look good? It's absolutely insane. Oh yeah, so hello, I'm looking in the chat. He says Dutch authorities would definitely take that off the market. The EU, they may have some strict guidelines and rules for things. Sometimes people say that, but I'm gonna say, yeah, sometimes it's for a good reason. And it may sound crazy, like you can't have an irregular tank. It has to be a rectangle or a curved, rectangle with one curved side or something. Maybe that's a law. I don't know. But it's because some guy made a tank that was shaped like a starburst, literally like, a star, like an 8-point star. And the fish had nowhere to go. And it was just for a look, for an interior design photo shoot or something. But then everybody wanted it. And a bunch of people bought these tanks and blah, blah, blah. So always, rules get made because of the exception to the rule, the people who break the rules. And oftentimes it's such a common sense or such a blatant, like, why would you do that? That you're like, we had to make a rule because of that one person or that one incident. So yeah. Hello, folks. I see new folks coming in, and obviously we're an hour and a half into this extravaganza. So this might end up being a whole 3-hour broadcast. I don't know. But let's finish off talking about what to see trend-wise in stores. So I think the big trends we're going to see in stores, you're going to see a lot of maybe like Marvel movie stuff or Star Wars Galaxy or whatever, you know, also kids movies. They're going to try to market to kids. But there are these kind of proprietary franchises and intellectual property, maybe Disney stuff, Disney adults, whatever, you know, stuff, anything that's seen as like a timeless or a holiday tradition. It was kind of a big move when they started selling aquarium decor again. They hadn't done that since the 60s, really. That was each season. There's hearts for Valentine's Day. You can get an LED display that changes all the different colors of the rainbow, and you can set it to pink. I think we'll see more lighting options in that sense too, more lighting from below. Obviously, ADA has had that for years where you have the light screen, and you wouldn't turn that on for your plants to grow. You don't want your plants to grow with light below so they curve over. But for that one aquascape picture where you want a smooth ambient glow at the center of like a sun or a background or a sunset or sunrise, that's where those come in. And I think that while aquascaping has inspired a lot of people and things, these like real specific detailed aquascapes, I do think that we will continue to see more somewhere in the middle of aquascape versus father fish wallstead, like you know, more mucky algae tanks that are maybe more natural or more plants and things. I think that plant trend will continue. Obviously, plants are incredible. They make the fish happy. They make things easier. I think we might see some synergy. I mean, maybe we'll see something like an herb garden that you can grow hydroponically and eat something off of. Like, I mean, garlic wouldn't be the one, but you know, something where it's not a root vegetable, I guess, that's in the fish water, but some maybe even chives. How about that? You could cut your chives, and then you'd have the green part of the chive, lovely, and you could, you know. So those things kind of already exist, but you're going to see fusion items for sale, and they're throwing anything that'll stick at the wall right now on like Temu and you know, all these kind of Marshalls and other places like that where you wouldn't expect to see aquarium stuff, but all of a sudden you'll see something that you're just like, what? Why are they selling that? And yes, I think you're right. Actually, farm mouse, that's a great, you know, great point. I'm looking at chat, and another trend you want to push is plants out of the top of the aquarium. I think you're right. I think immersed plants is a whole other thing, because plants, like I said, 9 times the amount of plants were sold in 2021 than in 2019. So houseplants exploded. There are so many plant stores now that sell houseplants. Like Seattle used to have like 5, and now it's got like 12. But that's something that you can pair up with your love of aquariums, right? So now also more humid plants, you can pair that up. And it's a fine line between making your whole house a humid jungle and having plants that maybe you can push the edge a little more with, like monsteras and anubias and things like that. But clearly I am not the person to talk, because if you look over there at my tank, it's like literally it's all spilling out of the top of the aquarium. The other tank is spilling out with plants. There's a plant spilling out there. My whole house is being taken over by aquariums and plants and tanks and things like that. But I agree. I think that, and another big thing that has been happening, and I have been meaning to do an episode on this for so long, is 3D printed aquarium stuff. So whether it's stuff like that planter that I showed off that was on Kickstarter that a guy out of England was working on, the Hobbyist planter where you would stack the things and plant them in these columns in your tank, whether it's something like that, you could 3D print that at home if you have a 3D printer. And a lot of people are getting 3D printers. And so a lot of aquarium co-op stuff I see at their founding store, their flagship store, they have all these things in bags that are heat sealed, and they've just got a cardboard reader on top that's just been printed out on like tag board, not cardboard, like thin board. And it is stuff like to hold a peace lily. So it'll say like pothos or peace lily clip for aquarium edge or rim. Things like a baffle or an adapter for the size of your pre-filter or a sponge, or your cage on your pre-filter to stop little fish from getting sucked into your thing. All that kind of stuff is possible now. And people are ingenious. I've seen also things like white 3D printed things for your test tubes. And then you've got a place to stick your card, a place to put the test tube. So you can take the API test kit and put that whole thing, So these are products that maybe wouldn't come to market because nobody wants to put 250 grand into machining the injection molded part that would be made that then molds the thing, or even more, maybe even $500,000 or $1 million. It has to be worth that many sold and then some, right, to even get made. And so people are like, I don't want to deal with the marketing and all the other things. But if you can make a prototype and then 50,000 sell, or people copy it from the self printer site, I think that is absolutely something we'll see more and more of, and we'll see those ideas spread, because anything that is a good idea and that is communicated like that is going to spread. And hopefully, misinformation, AI, all that kind of stuff in the hobby, hopefully we can act against that as a community also. And that is something I want to personally do on this channel, is I want to open it up to you guys, like now, forever, in the future. If you see something that you're like, is this true? Or, is this even a real video? Is that a real species they actually discovered? If you don't know how to look that up, the first thing I do is I empower each and every one of you to learn how to fact check that. Like, go to Google, then type in the word scholar, then look up the topic by the academic paper that may have been published. That's one great way where if you have a Latin name that's mentioned, you could find a new species. But even if it's anything in the world, Google Scholar, whether it's Google Scholar or Google Law/legal, you can look up all the U.S. laws, or all the laws where you are in like case law and things like that. You can look that up through there. Now, is AI going to get used in our hobby a whole lot in the coming year? Has it already? Yes. A lot of places are taking AI articles, and it'll take a fish that is a saltwater fish, and it'll throw that onto a video or onto a magazine article or blog article. And unless a human fact checks it and says, hey, that's Finding Nemo, isn't that a saltwater fish? And that's like a blatant example that you see when it's talking about guppies or bettas or something, right? That's where I think, like, please let me know if something feels fishy to you. Tag me, or copy the link, or just say, hey Alex, hey, there's a video about this or that. Find me either Facebook or YouTube or email, whatever. I would love to start doing shorts where I'm either debunking or clarifying stuff, because even people like why Forrest Galante, he's a guy who could be an incredibly impactful and effective nature and education speaker. Hank Green style, or I don't know, David Attenborough if he lived his life well, But instead, he's selling like focus pills and like balding medicine and stuff like that in the middle of where he showed an aquarium earlier this year that had brackish water fish. It had like archer fish. It was a 55-gallon, I believe. It had a couple archer fish. It had a two pacus that he was calling a type of piranha. I mean, which he clarified later. But anyways, the whole point was like he built this Noah's Ark tank, and he didn't at all say like this is not sustainable. This will max its capacity, and you'd have a nitrate, if not an ammonia issue, if not the fish killing each other issue, within 1 to 2 days. And I think that is something that you gotta always we always got to be careful. Like me too, like if you're watching me and I say some crazy stuff, or if I started spouting like Fluval says that you don't need any aquarium heater but this aquarium heater by Fluval, maybe something's going on there. So obviously brands and content creators can sell out. They can be skewed by things. They could just be wrong too. But in this day and age, there are incentives to manipulate and haywire things on the internet. And even nature or pet, creators and content makers, you just see a lot of stuff where you're like, oh, that's an old wives' tale. Why is anybody believe, like that's not true or that doesn't happen? Yet there's also a lot of incredibly good quality content out there. And in that note, I also want to say an incredible shout out to Thompson Aquatics and his passing. He did top notch his shorts and his deeper dives. I'm so sad that kid is no longer with us, and that he was fighting his autoimmune issues, and it didn't go for the best. But he was, him. Rebecca Bentley is an ichthyologist. She'll have her PhD officially, I think, in a matter of months. But great. I mean, we need to encourage, even if they're a little awkward. I'm not saying they were, but I'm saying like, even if someone is a little awkward or a little bit, you might say on the spectrum or something, like they're going to be the ones who are going to tell you the accurate thing because they have researched every little tidbit about the thing they love, whether, and it's not just trains, folks. There's somebody who loves just about anything you're interested in. Somebody has picked that up and picked it apart and knows it inside and out. And those people, we need to amplify those voices. The thing is, if you use AI and you're trying to, in 2026, you want to learn something or say, AI, tell me what a good stocking, like for a 20-gallon tank, what's a good stocking method? Like write me a shopping list that's affordable fish. Well, you need to specify everything you just said there. And so this is something important for 2026, 2025, now forward. Understand that AI, it has to use a data set or a website or an authoritative source. And then it can only do what you told it to, and it can compute things, right? And so if you give it that vague direction, it's going to pick what it picks from. And so if you say Chat GPT or whatever, or Alexa, give me a under $150 shopping list for the most fish I could put in a 20-gallon aquarium, right? Well, are you doing an inch per gallon? Is that the rule you're going by? Where are you buying the fish? What are you pricing them by? I mean, there are so many things that need to be they need to be understood and or constrained. Is that the right word? Defined and understood by the user, the operator. Otherwise, you have no idea. Maybe it's going by Bob's website that the AI was trained on, and Bob has never kept fish. Bob is a engineer, but for some reason, he just made up a list of the coolest looking fish, and he didn't know it was gallons. He was from Mars, and he was using caplocatoids, which is a totally different method than gallons. Caplocatoids are like, there's 500 caplocatoids per every gallon, so clearly you guys are like, what is he talking about? But no, also, I did see the super chats. Thank you so much, Jan. I really do appreciate it. All of the pufferfish for the super chat. $9.99, 9. That's what I say when I don't agree with things. But yes, happy New Year's to you as well, to everybody watching. Thank you so much for all your support. All you members, seriously, thank you so much. And also, if you didn't get the memo, our Discord is now completely free. You can still pay if you want to pay that way and you don't want to be a channel member here. And here, a channel membership is still the cheapest I can make it. So what, $1.99? And it goes up from there. So I will still have the option to get at me any time of day, bro. If you want that, that will require more money. But if you want access to my documents and to my 200 and some episodes of audio, which I need to get back into. You guys know I've had one hell of a bad year for health and stuff. But there is a special playlist once you become a member. You go to the podcast playlist, and all of a sudden you'll see an extra 200 episodes that are, it's actually an extra like 50 episodes. Some of them are 4 or 5 segments of like 5 minutes or 10 minutes long. Back when I was doing part of the morning show, I'd load 4 or 5 in a week for her, and then she would play from the segment a queued section. So that was kind of basically just fish news, fish science, new species found. Now I've gotten to the point where I've started editing so much that the fact that I just shot from the hip and I kept it more of a podcast, that I could make content for even from a hospital bed or laying down. And that's been the case, unfortunately, the last year. That's been a lot of what's happened. But I'm trying and I'm getting better, and it might just be tweaking my habits and schedules, and also just knowing what I can take on, maybe hiring an editor for projects. The problem is I don't make enough money on the videos that like hiring an editor, like I don't even make enough that like if I paid the editor, I'd be losing money on doing YouTube, which I obviously can't do. But if I did the rates that you should give an editor in today's day and age, or whatnot. But maybe there's something I can do with somebody who enjoys it and wants to like split the revenue of any given video. And as the channel grows, that becomes more and more feasible. But until then, it's just me running the show, obviously. And so that means it's me editing and uploading and all that. And if I have a really bad day health-wise and I have 3 doctor's appointments and this or that, you guys have heard it all before, but I really appreciate the fact that when I'm only putting out an episode a week, that's how slow it's been lately, and then a live stream or 2 each week as well, that you guys have stuck with me. That is, thank you so very much. It's allowed me to keep the lights on and keep things going here. And even though I will always love the hobby and try to stay involved, and I'd like to keep posting, obviously there's a point where like, a $1,400 check for the whole month of what you do, it can't pay the rent anymore. It can't even pay, one visit to the doctor that I have 3 of in a day. So there is some logistical challenges that go on, but I love this, and I love you guys as a community, and you guys have been so great. I mean, just watching old content that you haven't seen yet, or if you have a question, checking if it's on at FISHTORY.com. That means the world to me, and it also helps the channel a ton. Also sharing anything that's worth sharing. If you think, this was a good video that he made a while back, or maybe my friend who has a betta would like to know how that was domesticated and why it came to be. That kind of stuff, sharing that kind of stuff, that is it's really big, and it really helps the channel overall because it shows the algorithm that people are interested. So that's stuff that doesn't cost any money, that I want to thank you. The next level up is memberships, super chats, that kind of stuff. And thank you so very much for that as well. I mean, That's another way that it really does help. But I don't want any of you feeling obligated, because just because the economics of being a fish nerd and running a very niche fish channel doesn't always work on paper, that doesn't mean your economics are any easier. I know everybody's going through it in life, and things are what they are. The truth is, I've started picking up a little bit of my old graphic design gig stuff and working for my wife's company, and that's eaten up more time than I wanted to admit. I didn't really even want to say anything about it, but I figure I'll say it because y'all are diehard ride or die folks at 1 hour and 48 minutes into a live stream, if you're watching the replay especially. But that's how we're going to get through it, I've decided. So please don't feel guilty if you can't contribute, but if you can and you're up for it, sharing episodes or just sticking with me through this patch, and then I'll try to get back to posting 3 videos a week, like the peak of what I was doing for several years on end, when I literally can use my whole week, and I can use 30 to 50 hours a week towards this channel. That's what I want to do. You guys have allowed me to live the dream. And short of the fact that like I can't fly and go collect fish and film it and stuff and share that with you, like the physical health part of it is what has limited me, or from time to time the money part of it. But that is what I would like to do for you with the channel and stuff, and for me, obviously, my selfish needs. But again, another super chat coming in, a super sticker from Dagmar. Thank you so much. Another person that's incredibly supportive, who emails me interesting stories, and who I've also chatted with about their own aquarium and stuff. Like, I love having this community that we have. So thank you all of you that I know by name, all of you who know each other and are helping each other, answering questions for each other. That is like what I want from our community and what makes it special. I mean, of course, Aquarium Co-op has that in their forums, places like Steenfod Aquatic, I see that, or Dan's Fish. But, I like to see that in the fact that I don't sell anything that's FISHTORY brand. I try to support other brands that are in the hobby that I like, but I don't sell. Well, okay, that's a lie. I do have some merch if you're interested. Some of it still even says The Secret History Living in Your Aquarium for 4 years ago when I had a different channel name. But every penny that I make off of all of that merch, which is, I've been waiting to find a better manufacturer for that stuff than the online right now. It's all fulfilled through Teespring. Or Spring, I think, is the new company. But I wanted to say that when I can find like a US or European made and printed shirt that's affordable to ship out and all that, yada yada, and the logistics that work, I'll switch over to that. It's something that's been needed for a while. But any of the money that's raised through there, that all goes to nonprofits. So it usually goes to things like Son of Running River, or project like Dr. Mazeral's Amazon, the research project we did down there. One sec, let me grab you something. I'll show you something that we put together. If you guys didn't see it, this is something that is going on this year, and it will go on in 2026. And then we're about ready to talk about the actual species of fish that I think you should breed in 2026. And that will be the last chunk of the episode. But hold on one sec. All right, guys. All right, guys. So what we got here is an English version of the book I made for Mazeral's Foundation. So we've got this workbook that's a coloring book, and we took the indigenous religions of the people who live near Iquitos, and we created these characters around one of their origin stories that all their kids and their religions kind of echo, just like Native Americans have kind of similar
origin stories in a lot of different tribes, not all, obviously, but there's this loose story in the Amazon that like the dolphins are kind of like mermaids, or these protector spirits, and that there is a tree or a stone that all life comes from, and that is overseeing humans and nature as one under its purview. Like they believe that all the way up in the Andes with like Pachamama, and all the way down into the Amazon. There are similar belief systems, and so we kind of took the Amazonian larger belief system, and we took some a little kid named Abuelo, and what was her name? It's not, oh, Nalda. I was like trying to remember, and all I could think of was Dora, because the little girl is basically just Dora the Explorer, right? But at their aquarium, the Mazarals have all sorts of native fish, and a lot of the people there are, and this has been colored in a little bit, but yeah, I illustrated this and then helped his wife as well as some locals come up with some storyline and text for it. It's also in Spanish version and an English version. They're probably going to be making and then there's games in it too. So a lot of it, and then it's printed on paper that can withstand the humidity. And so this is finally on the ground, getting used in their shop. They hand it out with a pack of little crayons that will work even in like 100% humidity. And they can play games, but it's also about like not poaching from the river, sustainability, like the fact that like goes over a storyline where there's a guy and he's taking birds from the forest and he's taking fish from the river. And oh yeah, there's the little girl Nalda. That's her picture there that I came up with, and she's in indigenous clothing, all based on their like patterns and textiles and meaning. And the dolphin, she has a dolphin friend in the story and stuff. So it was a cool project that we got to work on for like a nonprofit thing. And so I hope to do more of that kind of stuff as well. Also, that was just a side note, because in 2026, they're expanding that program. Their aquarium is doing stuff, and Dr. Mazaral has students and professors and things coming into the Amazon Research Center in Iquitos, Peru. But then that's a launching point for expeditions and for people to go and explore the Amazon, collect fish, whatever it may be, study for their like final thesis paper or something like that. And it's a cool thing. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out as well. And then there's places like Project Paraiba, Paraiba. That is not what I meant to say. Project. And now I can't even think of the name. Project Why can't I? You guys are gonna laugh at me, but Project Piaba. You guys are probably yelling at the screen by now. But Project Piaba, with the cardinal tetra, they work with one species. But Dr. Mazaral wants to basically train indigenous folks in the area to learn how to grow things like if they're going to grow fish, like why not grow indigenous fish? So like things like the arapaima or the piaba, and grow those fish in captivity or in like a netted section of the river. And in that aquaculture, then you can even use that dense population of fish to even grow some crops with like a floating row garden. So like this aquaculturally sustainable method of using fish from the region that they already eat, and that they sometimes have to row like days upriver to get to the spot where there's a marsh or a flooded forest where it's the right conditions for the kind of fish they're looking for. But
there's a big problem all throughout Amazonia right now of people releasing tilapia and giant gouramis and a lot of these like fish foods, and things like tilapia can really destroy all the other more delicate like cichlids and things like that. When you got a fish that can do saltwater, freshwater, can adapt to 58 degrees all the way down to or all the way up to 100 degrees, and it has 500 babies that it takes care of. There's some tough cichlids out there, but there's certain fish that just take over when they get in a place. And they're saying like, one, don't raise those, but if you do, like, put them in a pond inland, like if your village is on a hill next to the river, or even just 10 meters above water level or whatever, put it in the pond and grow those fish there. Do not put them even in a net out in the main river, which is what's been going on. And then they break loose and then they reproduce. And now the Amazon has a bunch of tilapia all over it. Well, so that, along with cutting down on pollution, because they just see the river. A lot of these people had indigenously always thrown everything in the river. They always bathed in the river. They drank from the river. It's a never ending supply. It's so big. There's so much water. And now we're at a point, especially with the damming and the reservoirs in different sections of the river, where things, end up being not not everlasting, and so it is something that needs to be taught all around, like the Mekong Delta, for instance, too. Like, they used to just take for granted that it would replenish their rice fields, and every year they'd let it flood out, and all the fish would come into the rice fields. They'd help keep the insects down, including things like locusts and stuff. If the field is growing soybeans or rice and they let it flood for a while, and the fish come in, they can eat all the grubs and things, dig that up that would be in there normally in the ground. Whereas if they just keep it dry agriculture, there's a lot of different implications for that. If they aren't allowed to flood the field anymore, they don't open the little canals and culverts and things that they do with the terrace rice growing that has been so popular. That was a major technological innovation that happened 7,000 years ago in China. It came from Sri Lanka and India, and then it spread all the way up and into China. But there's like a 10,000 year symbiosis of gouramis and all sorts of little fish, bettas and things living in these areas that they flood agriculturally. And with dams being built and things that we've talked about today, it really changes, like, what's the point of flooding if it doesn't replenish the fertilizers and nutrients in the field? And then if they're barely getting by and it's like sustenance farming, like, do they even do anything with that land anymore if they have to buy fertilizer? Whereas before it was the river that brought it. And now it's all getting stuck behind the dam, up in the Himalayas. So there's real repercussions that will play out. And also there's real solutions. And so Ivan Mikolji and I and our Green Earth Alliance, we plan in 2026 also, it took us a long time to just get the bank accounts, the funding, the fact that he's Venezuelan and I'm American, and that those two countries have a real hard time and won't let us switch any money in hand. Everything has to go to Mexico first, or somewhere, in between first. Makes it tricky, but we're trying to come up with more things, like projects where we work with indigenous groups that know the species, that know the river, and already kind of understand some of the dynamics of the ecology. And when you have someone like that that's also going to school in a big city to become an ichthyologist, and they literally just need a scholarship to go to school, like, that's the missing link between having all that knowledge and love and caring for the environment and that specific place linked up. with the internet these days, to the world's archive of educational things and all these different resources about, like, for instance, implementing those different technologies and methods of farming or agriculture, aquaculture, and you know, all that. Like, it's something that we want to help facilitate. And also same with describing new species and preserving land. If they're selling land at a cheap rate so that it can be leased to a mine, like, what good is leasing land if they're going to literally cut the mountain from 500 feet tall to 200 feet tall, and they're going to use fire hoses linked to the closest river to just blow away all the soil and plants and everything, hundreds and hundreds of acres, and they're going to bring in mercury and arsenic to bring out the gold and the tin and the it's just crazy what goes on when you look at strip mining and Borneo and the Amazon. There's also surface mining that goes on in Africa, Sudan. You have a ton of that going on, funding the other side that isn't funded by the Arabs, of a lot of these conflicts that we talked about earlier. And so rare earth metals, even things like copper and nickel, but also gold, they're all playing a role in this, and they all have a part in why the rainforests of the world and then the fish and the fresh water of the world are so endangered. And that's where all the biodiversity is. And out of all the fresh water in the world, it's like 90% of the biodiversity is in less than 0.02% of the water volume. That's insane. All right, let's see here. Oh, super chats never go over $20 for me. So odd. Oh, that's odd. I'm sorry. I hope they fix that for your sake, not mine. No, thank you though for any of it. It's all good. You can always drop in on the PayPal too. Then they don't take 30 or 40% depending on the methodology, like which YouTube does take a chunk, and then taxes take another, like, in theory 30%. But I have write-offs. I get write-offs like things like buying new fish to show off. I can write off, like, 40% of the price of a new fish if I talked about it in an episode for a good amount of time. Then it's something I can write off. Stuff like that. So there's give and take, but my point is on that, like, don't worry about the method. Any support you give me, I value and treasure, even if it's not the money, like even just watching and being here. So thank you. Also, Johnny, speaking of support, gave a super chat. So thank you so much, Johnny. I appreciate it, brother. And yeah. Also, I see a little Alex. We're glad to see you when you can do it. I'm glad you guys are here. I really do appreciate it. And Dagmar, have a good day if you're still here. If you already left, you probably did. Take care. Yeah, everybody was screaming Piaba. Okay, good. You knew that. All right. Okay, so hey, Kenny, what's going on? Good to see you, Gary. Hello. Gift of the Wild. Hello. I see lots of folks are joining us. So, all right, we're at the point in the episode. 2 hours. Oh, so sorry. Gosh, that was so rude for people wearing headphones. I really apologize. I'm so sorry. George, also, hello. We're at the point of the episode where we're going to talk about what actual species of fish should we breed. And I will come out with a list, and that's we'll still go over some pictures. I played with some new software. We're going to see if it works. But the cool thing was, actually, I don't even need to hook up my phone, technically speaking, but I can do it all wirelessly. We'll see if the internet can handle it, if my house explodes or something. Hopefully not. Let's try this. Connect again, and we'll see. let's see here. So what I'll try, what I want to do is I want to share with you guys from my phone some of the new species that are in the hobby that I think are going to be big in 2026. So let's see here. Do I have to do this? Okay, hold on. We sent a notification to your mobile device. Enter the code shown. Really? Do I have to do this all over again? Maybe. Let's see here. Come from the land of the ice and snow, where the midnight sun and the hot swings blow. Okay, well, I guess I gotta send this code again. Resend notification. Oh, here we go. Whoa, it actually gave me a real word. It's completely random. I gotta type in this secondary authentication, but it's an actual word. I've never had that happen. And it's a weird one considering the day and everything. It's, well, it says fearer and then a couple numbers before and after, but that's weird. It's usually just a garble of numbers. Very odd. Wow. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's see if it lets me then share with you guys and what it looks like when I share. So we're going to remove that, the fact that I was sharing that screen. And let's see here. Come on, stop that screen. Add this screen. Share this screen. And oh, whoops. Hold on. All right. Your browser has blocked your screen icon. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right. Browse. Come back here. Slides, PDFs. Is that where it's going to be under? We'll find out. I'm scared. Oh no. Here we go. Let's see what happens here. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, not ideal, but can I zoom in more? Yeah. All right. Kind of ideal. So the first place I want to start is with Shinas. I wish I could get this bigger for you guys. This isn't the best, but shiners. I think that more shiners are going to be, there's an Alabama shiner. These are by Seth. The pictures I actually took, I asked Seth Patterson, and I said that I would link, even though this isn't a standalone video. Seth Takes Pics, at Seth Takes Pics on Instagram. Most of the native pictures of fish that are on here are from that. And there'll be some random pictures you'll see that are like screenshots I've taken, because that's the folder we're in. But yes, the sailfin shiner. There's another fish that I absolutely adore. I think it's beautiful. I don't understand why it's not in the hobby. You know, it can take up to like 72 degrees, no problem. It will kind of stay spawning, so it's kind of like the rainbow shiners. But there are so many incredible shiners, including those that are endangered. And right now the laws are difficult in that you kind of have to have fish from captivity. You can't go out and just catch any old fish. But even like a brown darter, they can look amazing. These are all from Alabama border with Florida. And I mean, look at this picture. Absolutely incredible stuff that he's sharing with folks. The russet top fin minnow. I mean, incredible. Why isn't this in our fish keeping hobby? I don't know. And it's stuff that's been in Europe. Hardcore hobbyists, like just killifish lovers, will maybe have some of these. Or maybe have, you know, golden top minnows or whatever it may be. Maybe here's another sailfin shiner. Maybe they'll have that, but it won't be like widespread, and it's nothing that farm bred. Just hobbyists seem to do this. And so yeah, I think that we'll see though more of these just absolutely beautiful, iconic fish in the hobby. Now, also speaking of small fish and the smaller tanks, this is the Kogel tetra. They're absolutely, this is how you spell it, Kogel, Kogal. And there is a blue one, there's a red one, there's a couple different tetras out there. And this is the money shot that exists. A bunch of people claim that they took it, and I can't find the real author. And I wish I could, because it's watermarked by just about four different sites and 2 or 3 different people. And apparently here, Adobe says it's theirs. So that's interesting. Aqua Addiction uses on their website too for selling this fish. And Moonlight Aquatic is selling this fish. Normally this fish is going for like 40 to 60 bucks in the US right now. And Moonlight Aquatic, I think, had it for $24 a fish. So if you want to shop there, the code FISHTORY10 is my affiliate link. It will help me out. It will also save you a ton of money. Shopping there in general will save you a ton of money. So basically, any fish that I can leverage at Aquatic Arts, at Dan's Fish, even though that connection is kind of it's not as active right now. I haven't talked to Dan in forever, and I don't know what's going on over there. I just know that they're done with any discount codes and stuff for you guys. So I can't give you anything of use in that sense, but he still does his episodes every other week of what he's got in stock and stuff like that, which is great. I think every ma and pa fish store or every online fish store should do that and show, what looks great, what's healthy, all that kind of stuff. What is this yellow and blue fish called? It's called the Kogel blue-eyed tetra. And there are new varieties of it, like I was saying, that aren't quite that stunning. There's other kind of like red ones out there and stuff. But there's also some look like this. Like this is right from Moonlight's Aquatics website. And that's what they look like when they're not excited, colored up, and in just the right pH, right? So that happens. Also, Asha, have a wonderful New Year's. Everybody out there, also, Gift of the Wild. I love that you've got Clippy, as I have heard of the Clippy movement. With, we got to keep AI in check. We got to make sure that AI doesn't take over the world. And like I said, if you guys ever are wondering, is that a real video of like something that happens in the wild, or is that AI? Send it to me. I will research the heck out of it for you. And I already have videos with top 15 resources for you online to fact check with, or top 10 resources for learning about fish and for researching fish. Go to the primary source. That's what I do, that I try to pride myself in, is if I can, I will find the primary document, the first taxonomical description of a fish. If we're talking about something like like gold laser Cory right here. What a beautiful fish. Love this thing. Absolutely beautiful. This one's from Moonlight Aquatic also. Absolutely stunning fish. Actually, this is the orange one, not the gold one. And absolutely stunning. Only 10 bucks for one type he has, 20 for another, like wild caught type. But and again, FISHTORY 10, that's me selling out and selling out by supporting another local shop. I think the Kogel tetras they had on Aquatic Arts, and I think they were 40 bucks a piece there. So granted, super expensive other places, and I support Aquatic Arts, but their prices can be insanely good. Like they had a deal that was 3 Cory catfish, panda Cory catfish for 20 bucks. And if you buy that, you get another 3 for free. So it ended up being 6 panda cories for $20. I mean, that's wild. That's a crazy price. And for them, you can get 15% off on Aquatic Arts. Anything at Aquatic Arts, use the code FISHTORY15, all caps, no spaces, FISHTORY15 at Aquatic Arts, and FISHTORY10 at Moonlight, and you'll get that amount off. So anyways, back to Moonlight. I was gonna say, if you're curious what's hot in the hobby right now, that's a place where I literally have my finger on the pulse. I literally am in the owner's ear saying, hey, let's get this fish. Let's order a green laser Cory. Oh, here it is. Here's the green laser Cory. He's got it, and it's in stock, you know. I think all these laser Corys, all these, there's blue laser, green laser, purple laser, gold laser, and then there's albino gold lasers. They'll be for sure on my list of breed them. If you guys can get a hold of these things for under $50 or $60, buy them, breed them, sell them for 40, you know, knock off a chunk of the price so they're a killer deal. And then, you know, if you can breed them reliably, though, you could make a fortune. Imagine a fish that has 200 babies at a time, or 100 or 50, however many you can raise, 50 at a time, say, even if it's that 50 at a time while they're young, a Cory, for instance, on average, somewhere. Let's make it even more reasonable. If you lose half of them because you're still new at breeding fish, so let's say you get 20 or 30 fish from each one, $40 a pop. I mean, add it up. It's a lot of money that you could be making. Anything in my mind that you can sell either straight to retail, there'll be someone breeding these things in the next year, when you have things like Ivancara, Adoteca, or the Zebra Acara, or things like the Starry Night Cichlid. There'll be a few people who breed those in the country, and maybe there'll be phases where 30 or 40 people are breeding them, and you can buy them from those people. Those people make the max amount of money possible, or maybe they're known for one line. So for instance, Green Dragon plecos, that was the thing for a while. Then Calico, then Red Dragon, then Lemon Blue Eye plecos, you know, Ancestris. Greg Sage at Select Aquatics did a lot of all of those, and you know, he would breed like hundreds of them and sell out completely of each. And that is a case of something that you could easily kind of become if you took over a niche of having the newest thing, or the newest development in a line or species. But another one that, as we talked about, the strip mining that's going on all over Borneo, Papua New Guinea, as well as the development along coastal Vietnam, coastal Thailand, of Chinese resort towns and things like that. And again, mining rights and mineral rights inland. There are a lot of these hill stream species are extremely popular right now. Going into 2026, they will continue to be. I know at Moonlight Aquatics, these are $29 or $19.99, somewhere in there, depending on which one it is. But this is, for instance, a blue zebra hillstream loach. Then there is okay, let's jump back to Cory's for 1 sec. We'll get to more loaches in a sec here. But this was another newer or one that's kind of been popular lately, which is the Bosemane, not rainbow fish, but Corydoras. They kind of have a cool look. Let's see, can we zoom in any better than that? Well, we can kind of zoom in on them. They're really a cute little Cory. They stay relatively small. I like those ones. Let's see here. There's also no. Hold on, let me get to the part where we've got more Corys. Corey. Was that any of it? No. So just look away, avert your eyes from the screen. I thought we had more Corys that I had set aside for this presentation. Perhaps I don't. But on this note of Corys, there's going to be Pantanalensis Corys. There's going to be all sorts of interesting, again, more gold lasers and the Corys that get popular that are kind of like new species. But these hill stream loaches have just absolutely kind of come out of nowhere. There's the blue ones, there's ones that are red, there's ones that are called Bloody Mary, there's polka dot ones, there's striped zebra ones, there's blue zebra ones, there's blue plain ones. And all of these are going to be popular this year. Sadly, a lot of these are going to be the last ones taken from their river or creek, and they only exist in one river basin in Borneo or in Papua New Guinea, in one of these places. There are 64 already described species of loaches, hill stream loaches in Borneo, and it has barely been cataloged as far as a lot of people, when you ask ichthyology wise, like what percentage do we know about all the fish there? And it's like maybe half or something. It's crazy. And then when you get into like subspecies of some of the fish, like some of them we probably have no idea, because we haven't even gotten to like the interior plateaus and swamps that are at elevation, so they're a little cooler. Those would probably evolve completely differently. George, also I see you saying you want some zebra plecos. There are, usually Moonlight carries them, and now they're no longer wild caught, which is great. They're most aren't anyways. They're mostly bred in China, and I think they were 119 for like a 3-incher, something like that, with my discount. But some of them, like the leopard frog pleco, was like $64 for like a 3-incher. Absolutely nuts. I'd check out Moonlight if that's what you're looking for, George. But again, those are just absolutely wild. And so along with those are things like these, which Stiphodons, you can't breed these in captivity. And while I love Stiphodons and I used to feature them and talk about them and show these beautiful creatures all the time, I still love them when responsibly harvested. However, there are people that just go to the river and they go to fresh water, and then they spawn in that fresh water, and then the larva that is laid, like literally microscopic sized babies, go out, get washed at plankton size out to the ocean, and then they live out there and they get fat in the warm surface waters that are full of plankton in the Pacific. And then they end up working their way back up either the same river that they were hatched in, or they end up in a completely different one. And that means that it's very hurry, let's get to more of these. So it means that they can be very different, or it can matter big time. If they just throw a net across for a week, that might be all the babies coming into that river, and maybe that was the only river that select variety was from. So while Stiphodon are an awesome fish, and there's certain ones like the rainbow Stiphodon or the annies or birdsong that we know come from like a dozen different rivers and creeks and things, I am just not going to like publicize that a ton, because we can't breed them in captivity yet. But that is a trend that I hope we change, because some Germans have started to toy with some of these, and I wanted to show you guys. I kind of passed through them on purpose without showing you, but these guys, somebody bred this Lentip Dimetrodon, which I had one of these for a while. Had one for 2 years that I got from Moonlight, and they're a newer species. They're a pretty one. They got like a little maze pattern on their face, and they look like a little frog, their little face. and they're a hill stream species, love oxygen, love flowing water. But they have bred them and they've fed the larval food, the larval state, by the way, they have given, they've been able to raise them and given them food because of something else that's going on that I haven't talked about yet in this episode, but here, let me scroll over to it. So these Amano shrimp, these are the ones that I've shown you guys from Aquatic Arts that I have in my tank. The yellow ones and the orange ones, there's red ones, there's snowball colored ones, and there's even kind of a bluish one that's been kicking around the hobby. Well, these are being bred in brackish and even all the way into saltwater water. And they are something that are becoming more and more popular, and to the point where people are breeding them enough that we've selected for instance, these yellow, incredibly beautiful yellow Amano shrimp. And that's something that it takes time and it takes a lot of generations in a row to select for. So the fact that they're getting that good at working with brackish fish, also puffers are being bred in captivity. A lot of plecos are being bred in captivity. 2026, I'm going to say that also you're going to see possibly more gobies being bred in captivity. And, look at that beautiful, beautiful yellow. I love them. I just think they look so cool. I'm going to buy more from Aquatic Arts. I can't get enough because obviously they do all the good work that is cleaning of fine things. Now we won't get to that yet. We're going to talk about the next thing over from plecos. In plecos, I would say that what rivals plecos, I'm sorry guys that I have to scroll past and tease you with some of the things we're going to talk about in a moment, but things like the mini snowball pleco, it gets like 2.5 or 3 inches long. It costs like $30 and absolutely awesome fish. Yeah, it's not only an algae eater. It's not going to just clean your tank. So you need to look up these species and see what's what, because things like the leopard frog pleco might even be so-called predatory plecos, like carnivore plecos. They mostly eat dead stuff or, hunt living stuff. And that is something that the Sultan pleco, the leopard frog pleco, all are related also to the zebra pleco. All those are popular. They have been popular. Prices dropped from $400 or $500 a fish down to more like $150 or $200 a fish. But I think these small fish in the $50 to $100 range, these species, especially like the little polka dots and like striped ones and things, I think these little plecos, as well as farowellas, so twig catfish, and you also get the other autosynclus species that I think are going to get very, very popular. Now, this is an oddball kind of in there because it's in the Hillstream setup, but this is one that's been popular this year and it's relatively new to the hobby. Absolutely gorgeous. Again, this is one of Moonlight's, but the purple sailfin gudgeon, that's another Hillstream species that's just beautiful, that will live in the rocks in the high flow. Again, more of those that we already talked about, but the so-called Bloody Mary, these are going for up to 100 some places. I think Dan's Fish, they're pretty expensive. I don't know, maybe 79 or something. And then I think Moonlight, they've been at least 50 or 60 bucks. But they, when breeding, their whole body turns red and black striped. Absolutely incredible looking loaches. You can see here like how the males and females look a little different. They can be washed out, they can be tan, so they can look a little different. But that was kind of the backtracking, as I said. Then there's also this red tail Hillstream loach. Let's see, can I find the Bloody Mary one for you guys real quick? I don't want to make you guys watch all this stuff, but another really cool fish that Moonlight that Chang has right now is this loach, which is called the barita loach. Very cool looking fish. So loaches, again, from that whole Southeast Asia region, are going to be popular. They've been popular. These are like stay under 4 inches, really cool color, mostly peaceful, but definitely specialized. I think hill stream tanks are still one of the mid-sized tank and species groups that are going to come to life and be more and more popular in the next, okay, I guess I don't have it handy, so sorry guys. But I think those things are going to make it more and more popular. They're going to get they're going to get seen. They'll be seen. So when we're talking about these little loaches and little gobies and things, obviously the bumblebee ones, they're so cute. They so are the panda loaches. Well, we got the new panda loach in 2025, and I don't know how Chang's selling them for only $20, but other people are selling them for like $50 or $40 or whatever, $30. These are the gold bellied ones, and if anybody can breed these, we've now seen proven breeding of the normal panda loach, which are adorable. And yes, now that they have been bred successfully by a number of breeders in Asia, Germany, and America, I will put them on that. If you can breed them, you are going to be making some bang. Somebody in their chat just said, I found baby hillstream loaches in my community tank. See? So maybe it's worth buying yourself a group, especially if you have, a community tank set up well for them. They got lots of room, lots of good food, happy ecosystem kind of thing. Also, I see Mick in the chat just popped in my tanks just hopped in, and yeah, he knows what's up. But hello guys, and happy New Year's to you. But RoboCop, people are gonna say, what on earth are you going on about, Alex? And I'm gonna say, yeah, auto synclet. Oh, there's one of the demon Bloody Mary. These things, their whole body, see how you can see a little bit of orange and red coming into the body there? Well, those stripes turn all the way red when they spawn, and their whole body gets it. It's wild looking. There's video of it that I don't have permission. Like I just couldn't get a hold of the guy to use it, but I would love to. And these I think are going for 60 on Moonlight's website. You could get 10% off that, so that kicks another $6 or $7 off of it. So anyways, if I were a rich man, I would buy these. And I think they'll be popular in the next year, especially as people breed them in captivity. There doesn't seem to be any big trick to breeding these in captivity. These don't seem to wash their young all the way out to the ocean and things like that, at least not most of them. So they seem to live in the lengths of these rivers in both Southeast Asia and also in Papua New Guinea and Borneo. Now, beyond that, I said autosynclus, and there are a lot of autosynclus out there in the world. This one here is known as the orange autosynclus, or the miniature orange autosynclus, and its Latin name is RoboCop. Pretty cool. There's also the bumblebee auto. Yeah, actually that's a better shot of one. That's more typical with the cream body. Again, a lot of these I happen to be showing for Moonlight. It's just because he's the guy who I tap on the shoulder and say, hey, dude, are these in stock? Can you order them? Okay, order those. But I think they will be popular. And, so far I've been steering him pretty correct on what to order, I hope. He also has a good feeling for that. He's been selling fish for a number of years, and he also knows folks in China and Asia, and can kind of plug into the whole world of like, well, what are people growing on their farms? What's going to be popular in 6 months, whether we like it or not? What is there going to be a ton of? Well, I'm going to not bring that in, and I'm going to bring something that could live with that fish and maybe goes with that fish, but isn't that fish. And so there's things like that get thought about for these lists and things when people are creating them as a business, obviously. But yeah, these auto sync lists are really cool. Yep, the RoboCop auto sync list. This one is available at Aquatic Arts also sometimes, and I think that's for the big. It says $130. That's not right. That's if you want 24 of them or something. I think they were like 14 or 15 bucks originally. So while we're in that part of the world, Medaka rice fish we talked about already. Yes, I think they will be popular. The fancy breeds, as Jan pointed out, they're too delicate. And I think that we're not going to see some of the Japanese ones that were super popular and fetching, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't think we're going to see that mania in the US. People seem to want to spend 20 bucks max on a rice fish, and 10 bucks is even better. And so I think um, that the Medaka thing will continue to be popular, especially in the spring. But I think it'll be limited to still fairly hardy species or morphologies. So not the super long fin like lemay that are sensitive to the heat and that have deformities pretty often. Or like the high fin or wide fin or whatever you want to call them. With the tails that are flauncy or veil tail, those things tend to be mutations that come with problems, and they're no longer the hardy fish that makes them so appealing. Yeah, I will. Kinky Kongami or Kongai. Can you ask Moonlight about Episto Paul Muellerite? Yeah, or Mullerite. But yeah, they are really pretty. So I think there will be a select few, and hopefully the Bay Area is still that club they set up, the Medaka Club. I hope it becomes a hub of, it's close to Japan geographically speaking, for the flights coming in if the West Coast wants to set it up. So yeah. Definitely, I think that'll be popular. A good fish to breed. It's been in my past years as well. Obviously, the Pseudomagills. Pseudomagill luminatus. Pseudomagill Aru2, Aru4. These are Aru4s at Moonlight. They're at Aquatic Arts also. Oh, here we go. Here's some giant auto sync lists before we move on fully. Sorry, we're jumping back and forth a little bit here. Let me double check that I didn't have any other pictures saved in a row that I was like, oh, just kidding. I'm about to talk about this for 50 fish in a row. No. Okay. So now I think those rainbow fish, even though Moonlight, he carries more rainbow fish than anybody I know. It's a very niche fish. So with him, Gary Lang, Imperial, Tropics, and a few others, Oddball Aquatics, selling most of them species wise. Like there's maybe 12 to 15 that get sold in the hobby, like the Bosemani and the turquoise and the Madagascar, that are all very popular. Those will continue to be, I think. They'll continue to be slow growers though. So they're time consuming and expensive to grow out. So the fact that there is someone in Indonesia breeding them that they can even be bought and resold for like 20 or 25 bucks is really impressive. Like from Moonlight Aquatics, the fact that he has so many rare ones that are in that range, it impresses me. But I don't think that will be the fish that takes the cake. Even though we love rainbow fish, again, here is one that you could probably get depending on where you live and the quality and size, age. These are anywhere from $10 to $15 easily. And they're the Pseudomagill luminatus, the Pseudomagill forktail or furcatus. Also, like I said, the Gertrude Aru2s, Aru4s, both very popular, very cool looking. The Pacific Blue Eyes, very cool looking. Ivan stuff, very cool looking. I was trying to think if I'm missing any other ones that I wanted to mention briefly before moving on. No, I think we're good. Okay, so I do want to talk about something else that we kind of haven't looked at in the last few years, but I think these fish will be popular, and that is the melon barb, the gold barb, the butterfly barb, all these incredible fish that are out there that aren't in the hobby. The ember or amber barbs, both really cool from Africa. They're really expensive right now. And or the J barb, absolutely cool. This is a Pethia gellis, and there's also Pethia aronticus and Pethia Caucaca, Caucasus. It's like caucus, but Caucasus. And a lot of these are from India or Bangladesh or maybe Pakistan. Also China and kind of the foothills of the either side of the Himalayas. But these are a really these Pethia gellis, really nice fish. Usually $5 to $7 or so. They school together nice, and they're small, they're peaceful, they fit in a nano tank. Maybe not like a 3 gallon, but definitely if you had a 20 long and you wanted to keep some tetras and some cories, little cories, little tetras, they would go well. I think same with the butterfly barb, same with the Aronticus version, which is just an oranger version of that same barb there. They're a little more boisterous, but like the red melon barbs and melon barbs, they're very cool fish that, yes, they've been popular in the past. Drape fin barbs, that's another one where like, yeah, they were popular fish, and I don't know exactly why they fell out of style or whatever. But I wish they had, hold on, let me get back to where we were. Okay. Yeah, so like the melon barb, absolutely beautiful fish, red eyes. They can color up really brightly too. There's a lot of barbs out there that we should love and bring in. And just keep your eyes peeled for that. Also, I think the Livebearers, whether that's Goodyids or whether that's things like the Pictoguppy, the swamp guppy, those are also going, yes, T-barbs, mascara barbs. I think all that stuff is going to be popular. It's always been somewhat popular, cherry barbs and gold barbs, that kind of stuff. I think some of the more oddball ones and some of the more new ones are going to fetch better money. So that's why I'm saying I think in 2026 we'll see a resurgence in both loaches and barbs. New loaches, hillstream loaches and things. But yeah, I think we'll see that. They've also, unfortunately, everything out of Madagascar and Papua New Guinea, the rivers are just getting destroyed and diverted for mining, gold mining, copper mining, rare earth metal mining. And unfortunately, they're getting destroyed, but also all the plants, all the critters that live there are just being cleared out because people figure they're just going to die anyways, because the rivers are just going to be full of silt and they're going to get cooked in the sun, and you're going to have a river that's normally shaded 98% by the rainforest, and all of a sudden the whole thing is in the sun all day long and silty and just getting warm and cooked. So really sad stuff, but all those species will be popular because of that, and because there are exporters in both Singapore and Indonesia and Hong Kong, all three places close, easy to exploit. The Livebearers in the New World, though, Liberty Mollies, that was one last year that I kind of shouted out because I happened to have some of them. Goodyids, I usually keep one or two, but there's some that are pretty. I only think the pretty ones will be kept, like the trout Goodyids. They're ones that like people who are hardcore into fish or have a fish room may think they want, but I think word has kind of gotten out that they're pretty boisterous and they're pretty nippy to each other as well as to other fish. They're not really a community fish, but a lot of the like lamias or metallic livebearers or the swamp guppies or even stuff that's not that pretty but that is kind of interesting, like some of the mollies or platy fish, I think that is where we may see some more growth. And in the next like 5 to 10 years, I could see more and more species. Because why is it just endlers and endlers, swamp guppies, and or pictoguppies as they're known, Postiliata pictus. And actually, I don't think they're not technically Posilia. I think are they par Posilia or something like that, or pseudo Posilia. But anyways, so that's a side tangent of thought. Keep an eye out in my video. I'll tell you which ones I think have potential for like color, you know, bringing out some real colors and things. The Amazon Molly's one that like I think is biologically fascinating since there's no males in the species, but I don't think it's going to be like a hot topic or anything. So moving on from that, because I don't want to dive too deep, I do want to mention tetras, and we know that things like the watermelon tetra, the super red cherry tetra, the crystal red tetra, the blueberry tetra, the fire ant tetra, all those were big last year, and all those are big this year again. But what I do want to also point out, sorry guys, sorry if you're getting dizzy by all my photo scrolling here. This is the first time I've used this software of screenshots. This is screenshots that I might have been including into my my video. And I'm sorry I'm standing in my backstory. But anyways, check the nickname Butterfly Barb. Yeah, that is an incredible barb. That is my favorite. And mix up the Hool Starety with the Gellius barb. No, the Gellius barb should be completely different. Like those aren't called butterfly barbs. I'm sorry if you misheard me. I was just saying in general, the butterfly barb out of Africa is one of my favorite. I haven't showed a picture of it though. I have video of it, but yeah. San Marcos splitfin needs some better manners. Yeah. Yeah, some of the like the tequila split fins, and you know the what's it called, the tequila, or no, it's what is it, volcano? There's, I don't know, there's a bunch of different goodieads that I hope somebody loves keeping them, but they're not going to be a widespread thing. I don't think. They get a little too big, and they're a little rowdy, and they like the harder water, generally speaking, more on the alkaline side, which is not what like tetras and all the like delicate and beautiful fish seem to love. Also, hello across the world, flowers with horns. Aloha, hello to you as well, and goodbye to you as well, I guess. Anyways, what I was going to say is the other oddity in the world is the Emperor Tetra. And I want to just take 2026 to appreciate how many freaking ones of these we have. I mean, holy smokes. The Emperor Tetra, or the Carry Tetra, geez, there's this blue version. And I realize there's 3 or 4 different fish that it represents, but I want to just, let's see if I can pull up some of the other ones for you here too. There are the Emperor Tetras of just about, there's this orange type, as they call it, which has orange and yellow fins. Still has purple on the body, but that's an Emperor Tetra. There's also, oh, and this is, by the way, a black arrow tetra, new species or newer species. This is going to be a hot fish. There are a few, probably three species in its grouping. Also, the scratch tetra, that's another new fish in the same group as the Emperor Tetra and the Royal Tetra, but super beautiful These I think will be coming down in price, but still fetch a good price. And I think that they're going to be very, very popular. So anyways, the Emperor Tetra, here is another royal blue Emperor Tetra at Moonlight. Here is that yellow Emperor Tetra, right? Then we had the albino blue Emperor Tetra, which it's odd because there's an albino blue. This isn't truly albino. Its eye is blue. There is a pink-eyed albino also. So I don't know if this is platinum or what, but technically that's a purpley blue color. Aquarium Co-op carries these, so I need to go over there and like check them out and see what's going on. I just heard from one of their employees that they had them. Also, they have these right now at Aquarium Co-op, and these were really cool in that the males all have green eyes and the females have blue eyes, but these are the black Emperor Tetras. So my point is that we are starting to breed even non-Livebearers. For years and years, Livebearers and cichlids seemed to be the fish that we toyed with the most, right? If it was a cichlid or a Livebearer, we played with phenotypes. I guess bettas, obviously, that's another big one too. But every fish you can do this with, basically. And the more diversity in a genus, sometimes the easier it is. But I mean, look at this. Here's another one. This is the red Emperor Tetra. These are just, they've been a popular fish in the hobby for 70 years. And here is the purple and blue Emperor Tetra. There's also a rainbow Emperor Tetra. There's also this longfin Emperor Tetra, which I think this one's actually a different species. But anyways, I was just blown away when I started going down that rabbit hole of Emperor Tetras. That's another Emperor Tetra. I mean, it's bonkers. Like, how many freaking fish are there going to be? Okay, so this J, I don't know how to say this for sure, but I think it's J. Blyton. Or Blaton. But anyways, he is a creator. And if you guys like the Bilitong in Indonesia, but the island of Sulawesi and stuff, he goes out and he collects fish and he does the Ivan McColgy thing. And he has taken aquariums and he sets them up and he takes everything he finds in the river that day and then he throws it in there and looks at it. Well, he has all these bettas that he found on one island off the coast of another Indonesian island. But these are 5 different species that all are very similar. They're in a similar clade, but they, or species grouping, but you can see that like some have this jade square on them. This was an example though, but I think wild bettas, Belitung Island. There you go. There's how you say the island name. Is a very hot spot right now for a lot of Chinese in Malaysia or Indonesians or Malaysians. All 3 people are going there, middle class, but also the nature photographers and things, going an hour outside of the city kind of thing. Very primitive roads when you get away from the main coastal areas, just like a lot of these island places are. And people don't realize these are islands, but they're like 30 miles across and like, 15 miles, maybe, or, 30 or 40 miles long and maybe 10 to 20 wide. And, there's freshwater lakes, some of them have rivers. I mean, there's a lot that's been there. And this was all part of one continent, as we've talked about in the past, called Sundaland. And this area, that because of that, has, like I told you guys in the episode that's 3 years old, that we had 97 betta species. Well, I talked to Wei Feng and I talked to David Zong and David Zhang. That's a little confusing, but I talked to these experts in China and also in New York at NYU, talking about the wild bettas, how many there are. They're realizing that there may be like up to 200 of them. They have been finding like 5 to 6 a year new species that they've been writing about, and that is one species where they're keeping up with with what's going on, and this in particular, he's a friend of mine, this kid who cataloged these. This brings up another point that I think these might be big. This was on my radar, but there are freshwater pipefish in Borneo, and there's 3 species of, and there's also some half beaks, one of which is new, probably 2 of which are new actually. And yeah, so I think half beaks are already kind of intriguing as live bearers that live across the planet from all the other live bearers. They live in these kind of like rice paddy areas, that traditionally they're like, look at these chunks of limestone right there, and then there's like mud and swamp and rice down low, and then there's these big volcanic and limestone, basically there's basalt and limestone, and so you'll get really, really alkaline water, and then you'll get really, really black water from the flooded forests, which kind of counterbalance each other. Sometimes they make things neutral. Sometimes, like, one side of a hill or a valley will have a creek that is 8.0 and 500 TDS, and then the other side will be 6.8 stagnant water down in this valley area. So, these parts of, down in Indonesia, in Sulawesi, in Borneo, and Papua New Guinea, the real answer is like, when were humans going to get there, and when were they going to share these fish out with the world, right? And yeah, breeding pipefish is another thing that's new, in captivity, in that it's getting popular, it's getting more well known about. And yeah, In My Tanks just mentioned that. He just said, going to a talk from Becca Golding this weekend, Cichlid Club of York. Right on, that's super cool. She's bred 2 species. Yeah, the gold ring. There's also the green Indian royal pipefish, and then there's the short neck pipefish, and then there's a number of them. Here, I wrote down a couple others too that were the short tailed, and then there's the short necked. There's the and there's the rainbow belly, of course. That's the one that's the money ticket for pipefish. But there are more also in the Philippines, and there's the red line. Back in barbs, by the way, I just had to shout these out because I just got some. Drape fin barbs, super underrated, but when they're mature, I mean, how do you get more beautiful than that? What an elegant fish. 6-7 bucks a fish out of India. More barbs that used to be popular, and they've been under the radar, and I think they will become more popular. Same with like headstanders. The other one that I think is going to get really big again are glass fish. So glass fish, a lot of people think, oh, those are only brackish. Well, no, there's a whole bunch in Malaysia up through Thailand, Myanmar, all the way into Assam, all the way over into India. There are a lot of really fascinating glass fish, and some of them have quite a bit of color to them. There's clear ones, there's amber ones, and then there's some that have like red or purple fins and these really bizarre shaped bodies. I think all of those are going to pick up popularity, and if anybody could breed those, which we know we can, it's not like hard, it's something that has been proven time and again in the hobby. I think those will be very hot. Here's a whole Central American tank that somebody was posting on Facebook that I was just amazed that all these fish hadn't destroyed each other yet. I mean, look at this mix of this motley crew. Anyways, what else was I going to, hold on, let me pop me up on the stage. We're getting to that point of the day where I'm at 3 hours of this live stream. So what other fish are going to be popular in the year to come? Well, I think, the end of the day,
I think we're going to see Amano varieties becoming popular in the next year to few years. Color strains. I think we're also going to see multicolored Neocaridina strains. So like one Neocaridina with yellow, red, and orange, and they call that Calico or Sunkissed or Crush. You know, maybe I've seen it before from Shrimp King's posting. You'll see black and red shrimp, and they'll call it kind of like an onyx or rust or something. But when you can get 2 or 3 colors together, so if you could get like green and red, like actual country flags, like the country of Thailand has had a lot of bettas that are done that way, like domestic bettas, where they bring in those colors. Yeah, very wild. George, you were saying so hard not to buy all the fish Alex shows. Well, there's a lot that I want to buy too. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot earlier about 2026 and the economics of everything is that all the plant farms in Florida, so what's it called, Waterscapes and Florida Aquatic Nurseries, and a few others actually got wiped out by flooding rains and like hurricane systems that came through early in the year, and it threw them off by like 6 to 9 months. They totally had to replant. It inundated everything. They had to do insurance claims and like replant, but it probably threw off what they were cultivating that should be ready as like sword plants and stuff even now. So I'm seeing some killer deals on things like Prinz Kleiner swords, for instance, that are outside. They're grown outside in Florida in these shallow troughs, but clearly they just grew a ton of those because maybe they thought like, oh, we can crank these out. And other things are missing that normally you'd be like, wait, why is there no, where is all of the Ludwigia and Rotala in wholesale bunches, you know? So it's another reminder yet again that weather matters, but also you never know with the changes we've seen in weather patterns. Like Tampa hadn't gotten hit by a hurricane since like 1920, and then before that like 1870. And they had 3 direct hits in a year and a half. Very, very bizarre. Colorful Amano shrimp is what I'm hunting for in 2026. Well, Aquatic Arts, use the code all caps FISHTORY15, and you can get all 3 or 4, actually 4 different color morphs from them. And sometimes there's even the BOGO coupons and deals, which you can also use with my code. So if you guys haven't done that yet, you can also buy a gift card at Moonlight Aquatics or Aquatic Arts for someone you know or for yourself, but you can use that 10% off or 15% off code, and you can use that now and then buy the $100 thing, and you can either get it then, or you can pay full price now and then you get it at checkout, I guess. So you have to kind of pick when you want it. But if you're gifting it, you could make yourself seem like you're giving a really nice gift by 15% more at Aquatic Arts. Or and then, you know, they're just going to have to pay the normal price. Or you could just tell them like, hey, use this code and, you know, it'll give you a good deal. If you're thinking about giving anybody anything like that. Just wanted to make a note of that. But yeah, the plant world is a bit odd because of all of that turmoil with the weather going on. But, you know, other than that, I think the planted tanks, we could talk about what plants are going to be hot this year. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll get like Stephen P. 2003 Aquatics on here and we can do that. But, you know, one major thing would be Samulus parviflora and Samulus parviflora. I think that's what it was called for a while, and now they're calling it Leishmia or Limshia, I don't know how it's going to be said, Parviflora or Samulus. I don't know. It's the red plant that is it's a beautiful, it's got kind of a teardrop shaped leaf that ends with the big rounded end, and the side next to the center is more of the skinny teardrop. But yeah, I'll talk to Stephen P. I'd love to have him on for a stream. He's great. He actually did. I asked him to collaborate with his favorite top 10 plants, and I would do my favorite top 10 plants for the new year. Last year, it's been a year now, and then with all my health stuff, I never edited what he sent me, even though he sent it to me. And even though I stole the purple flame sword, and yeah, so I'm just a jerk. What a jerk I am. But thanks, Mick, for posting that. Ryan, hello. I can't believe that you are awake. Well, it's I get up at 4 or 5 a.m. every day to try to be, chipper. But then I usually take a nap midday, and then I usually or like late evening, like 7 till or 6 or 7 till say 9 or 10, and then I'll get up again at like 10 or 11 at the latest. But then I'll work all through the night, maybe lay down for an hour or two at like 4, and then at like 5 or 6 I'll get back up and go to it. Like that pattern, even though it's not healthy, it seems to happen a lot just because of pain and my health issues and having to change my bandages on my leg and stuff like that the last year in particular. But to kind of round off this episode within around 3 hours, I think that the nano fish will be popular, but I think the community planted tank of schooling fish or fish that can, be relatively social, that will continue to be popular. I don't think the big tank busters are going to be where it's at for most people. There will always be the lovers of those fish. Also, annual killifish, there will be lovers of that. Native fish, there will be lovers of that. But as a whole, those things I don't think are going to be part of what we see as the main push for 2026. I think we're going to see the bread and butter fish, and then I think we're going to see any new species or novel species, hillstream species, or something like black rams that used to be $50 to $100 a piece. Now they've really dialed them in over 3 or 4 years. Same with some of these angelfish varieties, like the Bulgarian seal points and stuff. There are like seafoam green angelfish with stripes that are absolutely beautiful, that were like popular. They called them avatar fish for a while. And then people, I don't know if they got sick of them or people just kind of stopped paying attention, but certain breeders kept going with it the last 5-6 years, maybe another 2 to 5 generations. And now some of these fish that were impressive, like the lilac angelfish is another one, or the red or burgundy dragonfish angelfish, absolutely like stunners. You're like, what? How is that? Like, where did that fish come from? That is bonkers. So yeah, I think also, the tetras, the same kind of stuff will be big. I also think wild betta, like as I mentioned, will be popular. Maybe batis. There's a lot of batis species out there that have not been brought into the popular vision of the hobby. And again, there's a lot of autosynclus species. There's the galaxy auto, there's the miniature auto, there's quite a few of these. Let me put this back up on the screen for a sec. But there are quite a few of these. It's the like galaxy auto. There's also a darker one, but then there's the zebra autosynclus, which is autosynclus cochina. Then there's the giant striped one. There's a lot of them out there. There's the Robocop again. And then speaking of bettas, wild bettas again, purple gudgeon,
pretty insanely beautiful, by the way. Another wild betta here. I think this was Hendra. Oh, and to show you another popular tetra, you know, that's one that's like, it's a newer, there's the new lapis tetras. So there's the lapis and the blueberry, and then there's the lapis imperial, and then there's the lapis blue skirt or blue bleeding heart. I think that's what it's called, blue bleeding heart lapis, this one here. So yeah, they're playing with names and stuff, obviously. And for those who were watching earlier and were like, wait, what's a normal panda loach look like? That's the normal panda loach. And also some of the cool Corridori reticulatus, kind of another cool Cory, orange sunshine pleco. These were just ones that were in with when I said plecos, for instance. Like these have come down to $49 or $39 to $59 for almost full grown fish, or 3 or 4 inch long fish, green and blue phantoms. Now there's another example though. They have different L numbers, but there might be the same species according to taxonomists. Like, what is going on there? Kind of odd. Again, here's some more just to show you through. That's the smallest autosynclus species right there. But these are those rainbow fish, that I've talked about before. Again, the last thing I wanted to show you guys on here was a few more of these hillstream loaches from Borneo, but the yellow one, the yellow leopard spotted one, as it's called. There's also the incredible one that Chang's got, the purple, blue, or purple and yellow ones. I mean, just like, where did these come from? Absolutely incredible stuff that's coming out of there. Also, we were talking about fish that are really similar. So these are new barbs, and I shouldn't laugh, but these came out and I was like, those top two are different species. Okay, all three are different species. How is a Chihuahua and a Great Dane the same species, but those top two are different species of animal? Like, make it make sense, people. Like, I don't know if they can create. And then, oh, here's the breed. This is the picture I really wanted to show you though, was the breeding color. Look at that on the demon. Gastromyzon catabacensis. Absolutely drop dead insane. Yeah, here's Chang playing with those when he got them in. But we were like, oh, how can we get them to color up? So we're trying to, turn up the oxygen and the flow and all that. Absolutely wild. Yeah. Really cool fish. So guys, I think, other than that, I could see eels making a bit of a spotlight. There's no reason right now for that to happen. But I was just thinking, man, there are like 50 or 60 freshwater eels, and most people could name maybe 2 or 3, even if they're in the hobby hardcore. And so I was just thinking, boy, there's room for eels, folks. I don't know if there is ethically, like if we should do that. And I have one other thing before I go. Now that we're approaching 3.5 hours of stream, I think we've kind of covered the course of 2026, my thoughts of what economically will be going on worldwide, what goes on, some of the things that just impact the hobby in general. But I want to thank you guys for allowing me to do this episode, period. Because I wouldn't do this episode, one, if you guys didn't care and weren't here. Like, it's about you, and also I think it's fun to go watch the other episodes and see if I'm at all right. Like, couldn't have seen COVID coming, right? Like that was a crazy year. But the year after it, like, did I see that the hobby was going to do better than ever? No, I was worried about it failing. I did say that I think home breeders might get some home runs on the fish that they breed, even boring, breed some tetras. But yeah, go back. They're not all called that. Some of them were called like the economic forecast for 2021 or 2019's world conflict map for fish, you know, which had like all the wars and trade issues that were impacting the hobby. So this year I kind of wanted to smash all those episodes that sometimes I split into 3 different episodes together. And then at some point in early January, I will still be coming out with like the top however many, a top 20 list or top 30 list or whatever it ends up being, fish to breed for profit. Because I do also think that there's fish that we could and should breed as hobbyists and that we're leaving money on the table if we don't. Uncle Joe's Fish Shed, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it greatly. Really, I do. And any of you guys who are members, like, it means so much to me. And yeah, in my tanks, Nick apparently gifted memberships, I think, or did I miss a $4.99? Another super. Oh, I did. I missed a super chat. 3-hour streams, and now we're talking. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. But I appreciate all of you. And yeah, also Mick for being a what do you call it? A moderator. Thank you. I couldn't do it without you guys too. One sec, I want to show you guys something. Randall, Ben, thank you. I'm glad you liked the stream. To anybody who's mad at me for the stream this year, I really tried to keep politics out of things for the most part. But if you're on the side of the warlords in Sudan, I mean, you can go fly a kite. Like, just get out of here, right? All right, one sec, and then we'll wrap things up. What else do I forecast in 2026? I forecast my big fat kitty, my baby kitty Sumi. Sumi, you don't know it, but this is where all the people live, in this picture right here. I know you're seeing the sunshine outside, and you're really thinking, put me down. Yeah, maybe we'll do a midnight live stream. And no, you can't keep politics out of some of this stuff. To some degree, we're going to have to talk about that. If there's a 20% tariff on something, then obviously it will impact the price of said thing coming, or said country's supplies coming into the hobby, or said fish. But anyways, I want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart to all of you guys. Thank you so much for bearing with me, because I know the channel has been dragging, as far as also just really dragging. But you guys who are members, you guys who are hanging out on Discord or Facebook, or just coming to the live streams, I'll try to keep doing at least, 1.5, if not 2 live streams a week, and try to get a video up each week, if not back to 2 or 3. And, you guys, it means the world to me that you let me keep doing these deep dives and these kind of episodes, these 3-hour live streams that I do every year. No, this is the longest one yet. But thank you guys. I love you so much. And I do. She was so good today. She was so quiet. Now she's like, leave me alone. I want to go play. I got her this like tunnel that she can play in. It's like I don't know, it's like laundry hose venting, but it zips to itself, and she can run around in circles in it, and it's very cute. And she hides in it, and then she jumps out of it and goes, wah! All right, you guys. Well, let's hope 2026 is even better than 2025. It almost couldn't get worse for me than the last year went. So I think it's going to be a good year. I'm going to try my best to make it to AGA in Sacramento as well, and hopefully Florida before May. Get the top implants of my teeth done, finished. I've actually got the anchors in. I need to get the jewelry. We'll see. But you guys,
like I said, I can't do it without you, and I appreciate each and every one of you and the friendships I've made, all the new people that I met in the last year. Those of you who are binging my content, oh, I love it. That is so great. Binge away. You make my heart content. And also, oh yeah, come visit, get your Crobia. I know, I would love to come visit. I hope I can travel soon, because yeah, exactly, stuff like that. I have so many people I need to go see. Fish rooms I'd love to share with you guys, and stuff like that. And in 2026 I will be having the Jody's why am I spacing already on her tropical aquatics store? Tropical Aquatics Co. Was it aquatic? Man, I can't. Uncle Joe's Fish Shed. I know y'all are related in your affiliation. Anyways, we're gonna check out what they're up to with their new business going into 2026 also. So that'll be yes, Tropical Fish Co. Thank you so much, Nancy B. And their online shop, and see what all that entails and what's their story. So we'll have them on, but I'd like to have more of you on too. You know, if you've got a fish room, or you got something that you're passionate about, you just want to share with others, maybe we'll do like a show and tell thing this year of some sort. Especially any of y'all that I've been hanging out with forever, like Kenny. And Kenny, I hope you're doing well, brother. And I hope you have a wonderful New Year's. Everybody here, if you're in here, you're like family and friends as one for me. You are my social life, my world. So thank you. And thank you so much for letting this channel happen and be a thing. It overwhelms me with joy to know that it's here, and that after 8 years, I mean, technically now it's going into the 9th, that the channel's still, we're still chugging along, and it might be at a slightly slower pace if I have the health stuff, and then also I'm trying to pick up some side gigs with graphic design. But we will still be here, and hopefully I'll be posting more soon as health continues to get better. So have a wonderful New Year's, everybody. Much love. And let me know in the comments, like, what fish do you want in 2026? What fish did I miss? And what fish is it time to retire? Like, which one are you over? Convict cichlids I'm pretty tired of. They might be in my I'm over it list. But you guys, thank you so much. 3.5 hours. We're gonna call time. It's good. And don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Much love, guys. I'll talk to you on the next one, probably Friday. Take care. Bye-bye. Sue me the Wonder Cat. I'm getting off the 3.5 hour long stream we did. It was about all sorts of things but fish. We talked about economics, but